Chapter 892. Chu Tian was depressed, but he didn't care about it with his personality. He was happy to be idle anyways. Dolores's Fox Caravan had opened a trade route for Miracle City and they had already obtained initial results. They had basically settled in the nearby small towns and were negotiating with the local tribes, even trying to establish contact with other forest cities. We are prepared to build a large-scale Miracle shopping center. Dolores told Chu Tian her idea. The first batch will be placed in over 20 small towns to test the effects. We will be working with over 100 tribes this time, selling Miracle City's products and sharing the forest's resources, creating the largest supermarket in the forest. Miracle Shopping Center Concept. Meng Qinggu had already mentioned it in the southern summer country's South Sky City. The Miracle Shopping Center was a large-scale general merchandise platform and a supermarket built by the company. Miracle Commerce's products would be the main product, clearly marked, sold on the shelves, and sold in a regulated manner, with chain stores all over the country. This platform would also bring in the products of powerful companies and families from all over the country, making the shopping center more complete and competitive. Meng Qingwu's idea was very far-sighted and she had a lot of potential. The only mistake was Miracle Commerce's development speed. Miracle Commerce had only spent a year rising from South Sky City to jumping out of the southern summer country. There were also canned food, magnetic sound machines, source energy weapons, and other products with great potential. The Miracle Shopping Center's development speed couldn't keep up with the company's development speed, so Miracle Commerce's revenue wasn't that large. Therefore, it was quite useless in the southern summer country. Meng Qinggu once again brought up the idea of the forest supermarket. This was not just because Miracle Commerce's position was different from before. Miracle Commerce itself was not the same as before. Miracle Commerce's spatial technology had made large progress over the past few months. The Miracle Shopping Center would completely change and become the largest supermarket chain in the forest in a way that surpassed people's imaginations. The Forest of Chaos was very big and rich in resources. Why were the forest races so poor? Why were there so few merchants from outside the forest that came to do business? The main reason was that the forest environment was too complicated and dangerous. There were ferocious aborigines everywhere, and bandits who blocked the road were everywhere. 90% of the powers in the forest followed the dark forest law and did not dare show themselves. Every time the forest merchants came to the Forest of Chaos to do business, it was a gamble of life and death. These contradictions affected the development of the Forest of Chaos, and it was because of these contradictions that Meng Qinggu saw a large opportunity. The Miracle Shopping Center could change this situation. The Miracle Shopping Center was no longer a large physical shopping center in South Sky City, rather it was a higher level, more suitable, more convenient, and more flexible existence. It combined the already mature Miracle Commerce communication technology, sound and image transmission, air transportation technology, as well as the currently starting, but already beginning to be used space and spiritual technology. Dolores gave an example. We are prepared to open virtual shopping centers in 20 small towns and use image transfer mirrors to display products. The important products will be directly tested in spiritual stores and each store will be connected to Miracle City, allowing customers to directly ask questions. This way, we don't need large stores and we can have tens of thousands of products. Chu Tian nodded. That sounds pretty good. That's not all. We can use the Miracle Broadcasting Station and the Miracle Television Station to advertise and buy products. For example, we can use the Miracle Shopping Center's hot products, event products, or the newest products to broadcast or send pictures and videos to various places. It's best if people can buy things without leaving their homes. Vivian was confused hearing this. How will we send these things to our customers? That will depend on the space technology you are in charge of. Dolores became more excited the more she spoke. Although with Miracle Commerce's current level, we can't open a personal storage warehouse for everyone, but we can collect orders and send them to various cities and towns. If there are large orders from tribes, we can use airships to send them. This way, there will be almost no risk. In doing business in the Forest of Chaos, risk was always number one. This risk mainly came from the outside world, but with Miracle Commerce's method of doing business, not only was it fast and convenient, it also had almost zero risk. Miracle Commerce did not just sell their own products, they could also sell products from the southern summer country and other places. The large tribes chose to cooperate with Miracle Commerce and they sold their products on the Miracle Shopping Center's platform. Not only could they sell it to the various cities and towns in the forest, they could even sell it to countries outside the Forest of Chaos. When the products were no longer restricted by region, the price would naturally rise and the benefits would be unimaginable. Miracle Commerce's platform would not only create a large amount of value, it would also allow them to gather large amounts of resources for themselves. It would also allow the locals of the forest to become rich, allowing the Forest of Chaos to undergo an earth-shattering change. Vivian's blood boiled hearing this. It was just like what Vivian thought when the space warehouse was built. This was a large benefit to the elves. For example, the elves' tea leaves, artwork, and various treasures. If they were sold locally, they wouldn't be worth much, but if they were sold to the human empires, they could be sold for over 100 times the price. Didn't the elves not like interacting with the outside world? Now they could ship these things to Miracle City and have Miracle City sell them in the shopping center. At worst, they could just split the profits and the elves could obtain benefits that they didn't even dare believe before. In the future, the elves could use the Miracle Shopping Center to buy goods from all over the continent. As long as they paid the money, these goods could be sent from all over the world to the Eternal Forest, to the secret area where the elves lived, allowing the elves' lives to be greatly improved. Too great. Good, it really is very good. Chu Tian rubbed his chin and said in a puzzled voice, "What is so difficult about this? Miracle Commerce is still too small right now, we don't have enough manpower to send people to build the shopping center. Moreover, as the shopping center becomes larger and larger, our shopping center team will become larger and larger. In the end, it will become very bloated and it won't be easy to manage." Dolores said with a sigh, "There is another very important thing. Think about it, we've opened such a large market, if we eat it all by ourselves, wouldn't others be jealous?" Vivian knit her brows, "Then what do we do?" Vice City Lord Meng Qingguo is prepared to find a regional agent that will solve this problem. Dolores paused before saying, "The small towns have their own agents, the cities have their own agents, and the countries have their own agents. We'll cooperate with the strongest power in the area and let the locals manage the shopping center. Miracle City will provide technical support and management and will split the profits. This way, it will make it easier for the local areas to manage and it will make everyone rich together. The young miss really has a way. If we find an agent like this, it will make it easier for the local areas to manage and it will speed up our development. On the surface it looks like we're giving up some benefits, but it will create a more stable win-win situation." Chu Tian nodded, "Since it's like this, we'll do it. Do you think I don't want to?" Dolores rolled her eyes. City Lord Meng Qingguo's plan is meticulous, but there are still some mistakes and miscalculations. The large tribes and races in the Forest of Chaos are much poorer than she imagined. Although there are many people who are interested, they don't have enough money to participate. No money? What are you talking about if you don't have money? Chu Tian had a look of bad luck. Could it be that Miracle Commerce has to build everything for them? That's why I came back. Dolores smiled strangely. That's exactly what I'm thinking. Chu Tian and Vivian were both stunned. Dolores was not a stupid person, she should know how big the investment was. She hadn't even seen the benefits yet, was she going to give away all the money first? As Miracle City's chief financial officer, she should know that Miracle City's financial situation was not optimistic. "I have an idea, we can use this chance to create another platform. If this platform succeeds, in the Forest of Chaos and even on the continent, it won't be any worse than the Miracle Shopping Center." Dolores paused for a bit. "I've even thought of a name for the platform, we'll call it Miracle Bank." Bank? This was Vivian's first time hearing this term. What is a bank? "We can invest a large amount of money to build a bank and the bank will lend them money through mortgages, letting them complete the initial construction. Dolores added after saying this, of course, the bank won't lend money for free. We can set a high interest rate and use this method to earn money. Vivian quickly thought of the key point: what if they don't return the money they borrow? The forest races are actually not truly poor. Their tribes have accumulated treasures from generation to generation, they only lack primordial stones and certain resources that they need. Our loans have mortgages, so if the tribes want to borrow money from us, they have to put up a mortgage. Dolores added after saying this. In the future, when Miracle City has enough reputation, we can expand our business even further. The forest races have money and it's not safe to keep large amounts of money in their tribes, so they can store it in the bank. Not only will we not charge them a storage fee, we will even give them a certain amount of interest. We will use the bank's money to pay a mortgage, using money to make money, creating an endless cycle. Good. Chu Tian was very excited. Very good. Dolores did not disappoint Chu Tian, actually thinking of this method. This fellow was destined to be recorded in history, she would become the founder of the continent's financial world. This is a detailed plan. Dolores gave a scroll to Chu Tian. I hope that the bank can open as soon as possible, giving Miracle City and Miracle Commerce a stronger motivation. Chapter 893. Meng Yingying and Nan Gongyun excitedly handed over the spoils of war to Chu Tian. It was a heavy bag full of source stones. The three of them carefully counted it, there was a total of 3,500 low-grade source stones. When the number appeared in front of them, the three of them were still very shocked. Although they had used the conscription to attract many forest experts, to be able to obtain this kind of result was too exaggerated. Chu Tian remembered that Meng Qingwu had done a rough valuation of their assets today. Miracle Commerce's assets, if converted into source stones, did not even amount to 200,000 low-grade source stones. As for the current reserves, it was around 30 to 40,000 low-grade source stones. Miracle Commerce had been established for over a year. This was the entire harvest. Although Meng Qingwu and Chu Tian were a little dissatisfied, this was not a small number to any power or family. Chu Tian and Meng Qingwu had started from scratch. Moreover, they had started from scratch in a small country. For them to be able to achieve this in a year was something to be proud of. Looking at it now, it really was too little. The few of them had worked together to build a small trial field and had actually earned 10% of Miracle Commerce's cash in a single day. This had fully displayed the huge commercial potential of the virtual spirit technology. This was definitely a good way to make quick money. Meng Yingying said with deep emotion, "You didn't see it so you don't know. Those natives were too crazy. Don't look at how poor they are normally, but right now it was as if they had picked up money from the ground. Those fellows who didn't get a chance to line up almost started fighting. I was puzzled, was it really that fun? The Forest of Chaos is rich in resources and the natives don't lack cultivation resources. The environment here is very closed and there aren't any outside goods, so there aren't many places to spend money. Source stones aren't omnipotent in the Forest of Chaos, so they don't care about source stones as much as the outside world." Chu Tian thought about it and said, "Of course, it's mainly because their lives are too boring and empty. It was hard to find a place to have fun, and although I know it's hard to make money from the trial field, I still couldn't resist the itch to try it out." "Who cares?" Nan Gongyun excitedly said, "Deducting the cost of operating the spiritual space and the prizes, we can earn at least 3,000. That's 30,000 in 10 days. We'll ruthlessly slaughter those fellows first and solve Miracle City's financial crisis. We have to cast a long line to catch a big fish. Just focusing on these people isn't enough, we have to make our reputation bigger and attract more people." Chu Tian shook his head, "This trial field is too simple, it won't take more than 10 days to half a month for people to be bored with it. At that time, the profits will naturally fall. Since we want to ruthlessly slaughter those fellows, we need to create a better attraction." Meng Yingying asked, "What do you want to do?" "Simple." Chu Tian gave a laugh, "Let's create a bigger, more fun, and more interesting trial field. In the next few days, On one side was the large recruitment and on the other side was the virtual trial field. There were some shaman priests and green religion priests that came to line up. Everyone gathered together to discuss strategies and how to deal with their own mirror images, but most of them were complaining that the trial field was too small, making them line up for a long time without being able to play a single round. Just as the people were waiting in line and feeling very annoyed, someone suddenly said, "Hey, do you know? I've heard the latest news. The city lord has brought people to create a new trial field and the trial content here will be moved over. At that time, even if 1,000 people start at the same time, it will be more than enough." Really? Arnold and the others revealed looks of joy. If there really was a trial field that could hold 1,000 people, would they still need to line up like this? I've also heard about it. The new trial field is different from this one. Not only will it have individual challenges, it will also have group challenges. We will be able to participate in the trial with our clansmen and the prizes will be even richer. Everyone's bodies trembled. What? There's actually this kind of thing. This kind of individual challenge trial was already very interesting. Could it be that they would also have group challenges? Everyone began to discuss with each other. As if to confirm everyone's guess, there was a giant airship with a giant screen floating in the sky. When had the forest locals ever seen this kind of big fellow flying in the sky? They were all stunned. It was fine if there was an airship floating in the sky, but this airship was not the main point. The main point was the content being advertised. Do you want to challenge the Hell Demon Dragon? Do you want to challenge the Mountain Giant? Miracle Commerce's trial field will fulfill your dream of a challenge, letting you experience the joy and thrill of fighting a peak existence. The voice was transmitted through the loudspeaker, and at the same time, various images began to appear on the big screen. It was a world of volcanoes filled with lava, and a huge figure slowly floated up from the huge lava lake. It was a huge dragon, and its black body split open, with flames and heat spewing out. Its entire body was burning in the flames of death, and it let out a furious roar that filled the sky. The image suddenly zoomed out at this time. There were large amounts of strange demons appearing in the volcanoes, just like it was the territory of a demon. Suddenly, the loudspeaker began to play a blood-boiling background music. There was a large group of brave warriors descending from the sky. There were ogres, barbarians, and minotaurs, all of them from the forest races. They were all covered in light as they landed in the middle of the monsters. All kinds of beautiful cultivation techniques and martial skills were released, destroying large amounts of monsters as they swept through the area at a shocking speed. Finally, the demon dragon in the lava lake was startled. Hong! The volcanoes all erupted. Countless pillars of flame soared into the sky. In this apocalyptic scene, the demon dragon spread its wings and soared into the sky. The warriors faced the terrifying demon dragon, but none of them had any fear. They bravely raised their weapons and took on a challenging stance. The battle music became louder and louder, as if it had reached its climax. The moment the warriors fought the demon dragon, the entire scene suddenly stopped. These people were instantly dumbfounded. This promotional video was too exciting. Which warrior didn't want to challenge such a powerful creature? Who didn't want to experience the feeling of challenging their limits? But in the real world, they only had one life. No one would do something stupid like throwing away their life. Even if they wanted to slay a dragon, the dragon might not even care about them. The natives all felt a surge of anger in their chests. They wanted to shout excitedly and immediately rush to the training field to experience it. Even if they had to spend a lot of source stones, they had to give it a try. How many times would they have such an opportunity in their lives? Moreover, the airship's broadcast price was only 5 low-grade source stones each time. Everyone instantly went crazy. 5 primordial stones was enough to fight an evil dragon. Was there anything more pleasurable in this world than this? The only regret now was that the new training field wasn't finished yet. So before the new training field was opened, these people could only pass time in the small training field. Once this virtual spiritual technology was developed, it immediately obtained a large success. At least it won the favor of these forest warriors, and large amounts of source stones flowed into their pockets. Chu Tian planned to build a spiritual library in the future to lure the forest scholars. The time flow in the spiritual space was very slow, so studying in the spiritual library for a month was equivalent to studying in the real world for a year. At that time, not only would the gnome scholars go crazy, but the other forest scholars would also rush to join. Miracle City's popularity would increase. This was just the beginning. First collect and then release. Miracle City would first gather its popularity, and when it matured, it would be able to develop freely. When the spiritual technology matured and the spiritual energy network was built, each tribe and city would be able to build a spiritual library, a trial field, and an arena. The entire forest of chaos would be connected, and Miracle City would rule over people's entertainment, living, and learning. The new trial field will take a few more days to finish. Chu Tian looked at the castle being rebuilt in front of him. This place doesn't need our help anymore, so we'll use this time to do something else. Nangong, help me bring a group of experts over. They have to be at least in the third true spirit layer. What do you need all these experts for? Why are you asking so much? Of course it's useful. But boss, you've already said that they are experts. Do you think they will come as you please? Stupid. Just tell the people that help this city lord, after the new trial field is finished, I'll let them try it out for free 10 times, right? Nangong Yun immediately ran over to gather people, and before she even disappeared, she had brought 30-40 forest experts with her. Even if these people weren't chiefs, they were still famous warriors in the nearby forest. They were all arrogant normally, but now they had all been called over by Chu Tian with a single sentence. I want to ask everyone for help. I wonder if... City Lord, stop talking. An orc jumped out. The City Lord's matter is our matter. That's right. The City Lord has helped us this much, so what does it matter if we help the City Lord with a bit? Chu Tian didn't care. Playing with aluminum. Yi Chun's death. Flattering her father. Punishment. Persimmon adhering to the customs. Praying. Blowing down her father's anger. Yi Yi's cooking, O Zheng. Swaying. Cormorant's butt. Invading. The Eye of the Star was the core of the transport tower. The Eye of the Star was the main material for making transport scrolls. The Eye of the Star had a chance to reach the perfection realm of the Chu Tian immortal body. Whether it was for the development of the city or to increase his own strength, Chu Tian needed to kill the star elementals and obtain large amounts of Eye of the Star. But the star elementals were too dangerous. After last time's lesson, Chu Tian didn't dare act rashly, so he used several days to prepare. The star elementals were very strong, but they didn't have any intelligence. No matter how strong this fellow was, it wouldn't be a problem for Chu Tian. Chu Tian first made a talisman that could block and weaken elemental perception. Everyone had one on them and would activate it when needed. Talisman. The effect would interfere with the perception of the star elementals. Other than that, Chu Tian also prepared a bait to attract the star elementals and an array to restrain the power of the stars. This was a three-way preparation. Now he recruited several dozen experts. What did these star elementals count for? Chapter 894. Miracle Banking's future was limitless. Not only would it increase Miracle City's influence in the future, it would also allow Miracle City to control the economy of the entire forest, finally becoming the commercial and financial center of the continent. Going from the future to the modern world allowed Chu Tian to have incomparably advanced knowledge. Therefore he could clearly understand that miracle banking had great potential. If this idea came from Chu Tian's head, it wouldn't be strange at all. Dolores was a native that grew up in the forest, and for her to think of this, it was a very incredible matter. Chu Tian asked, "How much money do you think is appropriate to take from the company's treasury?" Dolores decisively replied, "All of it." All of it? That's right. Dolores said in a very confident voice, "The Miracle Shopping Center has just started, it's just 20 small towns and a few large tribes, but I think the amount of loans won't be small. But after these powers borrow source stones, they have to buy equipment, materials, technology, and agent fees from the company. They have to meet the maintenance and hiring of technicians, so most of the source stones will flow back to Miracle City. Miracle Banking source stones will circulate once and then flow back into Miracle City's pockets." Vivian was a bit confused. "We've developed our business, sold our products, increased our influence, and developed the Miracle Shopping Center and the bank, but in the end, we've obtained a large amount of debt. We've eaten up all the benefits. How could there be this kind of good thing in this world?" Dolores blinked. "This is just this kind of good thing." Truly a profiteer, the cunning of the Fox clan was vividly displayed. With this Fox clan merchant team in Miracle City, how could they worry about not being able to make a lot of money in the future? After a few days, the young Miss, Yingying, and Nangong had all successfully broken through. The Starlight Immortal Body had reached the large success realm and they had all broken through to the true spirit realm. When Meng Qingguo came out, she learned that Dolores was planning to build Miracle Banking. This made Meng Qingguo very surprised, but with her outstanding mind and intelligence, she instantly understood the benefits. Not simple. Truly not simple. This Fox clan girl was indeed a talent that could take care of things alone. On the other hand, Miracle City's conscription was coming to an end. Chu Tian was the city lord and the one who started the conscription, so of course he had to personally take a look. The main people in charge of the conscription were Dongfang Haoren and Qin Bingyu. These two had low-key personalities, so they weren't very active in Miracle Commerce's high level, but they were very direct and efficient. The conscription was completed without any problems, so of course their contributions could not go unnoticed. The 30,000 forest locals that had been filtered through layers of people were standing in an orderly fashion in the open space. They were arranged according to their size and race. Although their clothes and weapons were different, they still looked a bit like an army. There weren't just the Miracle City recruits here. The locals from various tribes were gathered around to join in the fun. This kind of scene was rarely seen in the forest. This was the first regular army in the Forest of Chaos and the first professional soldiers. "Big Sister Bing, Haoren, it's been hard on you." Before Chu Tian went on stage to speak, he first shook hands with the two of them. Chen Bingyu's style did not change, always wearing a black mask and keeping a low profile. Dongfang Haoren was different. Dongfang Haoren's tall and strong body was covered in armor, looking like a veteran general on the battlefield. This made Chu Tian feel very satisfied. Dongfang Haoren had grown very quickly in this period of time, so Chu Tian wanted to train him into a general of Miracle City. "I believe that the soldiers that have come to participate in Miracle City's recruitment are the strongest and most elite warriors of the forest." Chu Tian took a loudspeaker and went on stage. "You are elites picked out of 10, you are warriors among warriors. Miracle City needs people, so we welcome you to become Miracle City's glorious regular soldiers." The 30,000 recruits all revealed looks of pride. The soldiers here had all fought their way through countless battles in the virtual arena and had passed a series of tests before finally becoming Miracle City's soldiers. For them to be able to stand here, it was the pride of a soldier. Not to mention that becoming a Miracle City soldier not only meant finding a good job for themselves, it also meant gaining quite a bit of glory and benefits for their tribe. "I can clearly tell everyone that from the moment you choose Miracle City, you will welcome a different life. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, everyone's starting point is fair. Wealth, power, and glory, it is inexhaustible." Chu Tian passionately shouted, "From today onwards, we will carry the glory of Miracle City and fight for Miracle City. Let us create Miracle City's glory together." Roar! 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 The recruits all roared out. The tribes in the forest had simple minds, therefore it didn't take too much brain power to control this kind of army. As long as they were treated well, as long as they were respected, as long as they had a future they could look forward to, there would be many soldiers willing to work for Miracle City. Other than that, This city lord will use this chance to announce a large matter. Chu Tian loudly shouted, in order to provide better benefits to Miracle City's citizens, Miracle Commerce will establish Miracle Bank and open a savings account for the citizens. Every idle source stone in the hands of a Miracle City citizen can be used to open a savings account in Miracle City. You can deposit and withdraw as you wish, there are no restrictions. We will provide the safest financial protection for the citizens, and not only will we not charge any fees, we will also give interest to the citizens. 1% interest for a full month, 8% interest for half a year, and 20% interest for a full year. The Miracle City people were stunned. They all had strange expressions as they whispered in each other's ears. More and more source stones could be stored. This was just too incredible. A full year's interest was 20%. If 100 source stones were stored for a year, wouldn't it become 120 source stones? The gnomes had very long lifespans. If they stored source stones in Miracle Bank for 50 to 100 years, how much wealth would it become with the annual interest? Chu Tian chose to announce Miracle Bank at the recruit ceremony to attract more people's attention. Miracle Bank's savings account was only open to the citizens. This was mainly because Chu Tian was clear that Miracle Commerce's influence wasn't enough. Why would the forest locals and outside powers believe him? Not to mention the fact that the Forest of Chaos suddenly changed. If Miracle City was destroyed one day, where would these people's wealth go? So Miracle Bank's savings account was a kind of welfare, opening it to the citizens of Miracle City. When the time was right, they would expand it. But it was clear that even in Miracle City, most people didn't believe it. How could there be such an incredible thing? Miracle Commerce would take care of the source stones, and the source stones could be multiplied with interest, producing even more source stones. Miracle Bank's opening was not good. Chu Tian used his status as the city lord to promote it and used Miracle Commerce's strength as a guarantee. He also showed the citizens how convenient it was to store the space warehouse, but the citizens maintained a wait-and-see attitude and had no interest. Chu Tian was very depressed. This was not a good sign. Although this business was slow and he had to take it slow, if everyone didn't have confidence in Miracle City and Chu Tian, how would they develop in the future? Chu Tian discussed it with Meng Qinggu and Dolores. Who cares? They would start lending in the forest first. Dolores led the fox race merchants around to negotiate. Finally, several strong local powers decided to use treasures of enough value as collateral, taking out a large amount of source stones from Miracle Bank to start a big business. Miracle Bank was 100% a high-interest loan. The treasures the locals used as collateral were valued at the market price of the forest, which was around double the value of the loan. The annual interest on the loan was 100%. Even like this, when a few leaders appeared, the other tribes and large locals followed suit and were all willing to accept this kind of harsh loan. This was because they understood that if they didn't take the loan, someone else would. If they didn't grasp this kind of good opportunity and someone else took it first, it would be too late for regrets in the future. The worst result would be that they couldn't repay the loan and would have to pay the bank the treasures in the space warehouse. Miracle Bank's successful loans gradually increased and Meng Qinggu and Dolores began to have headaches. This was troublesome, they didn't have enough source stones. These people were more enthusiastic about taking loans than they imagined. The treasures of the tribes were like trash, they all rushed to use them as collateral. These things were valued high in the forest market, so if Miracle Commerce shipped them outside, wouldn't it be worth several times more? Therefore, no matter if the locals could repay the loan or not, Miracle Commerce would not lose 100% on this business. Moreover, giving these source stones to the locals would quickly improve Miracle City's business system, which would benefit Miracle City in the end. Of course, the company would spare no effort in lending. Meng Qinggu tightly knit her brows. How many source stones do we have left? There's only 10,000 left. Dolores's face was filled with worry. We've already stepped on the red line. If we keep taking loans, the city's operations will be in danger and the gnomes' research base will be affected. But there are several important areas that haven't been repaid yet. The gnome Great Elder Clark asks for an audience. Clark? Invite him in. Clark brought several clansmen with him, carrying several boxes as he walked in. Meng Qinggu looked at the gnomes in a puzzled manner. Elder Clark, you are. The gnome Great Elder Clark waved his hand and the gnome priests immediately opened the boxes, revealing large amounts of source stones in front of them. These 50,000 source stones have been left unused by the gnomes for a long time. I'm prepared to store them in Miracle Bank for a year in the name of the gnomes. Meng Qinggu and Dolores were shocked before being filled with joy. This was truly an unexpected pleasant surprise. The gnomes would provide this large deposit, providing a large amount of support for Miracle Bank. Clark was not stupid. The gnomes would do this because the gnomes and Miracle City's benefits were linked. If Miracle City became prosperous, they would also benefit. The other reason was that the gnomes had seen Miracle Bank's stable profit model, so they had confidence in Miracle Bank. Miracle Bank's appearance would not just make Miracle City large amounts of money, it would also be a catalyst for the development of the entire area. Finally, Meng Qinggu signed a special agreement with Clark. The monthly and half-year interest on these 50,000 source stones were eliminated. As long as they were saved for a year, they would provide 40% interest. To encourage and support the gnomes, they would double the interest. The gnomes were also very happy. A year wasn't considered much to the gnomes. 50,000 source stones in Miracle Bank would double in value in a year. This was something they didn't even dare think about in the past. The matter of the gnomes having a large deposit in Miracle Bank was immediately spread through Miracle Commerce's channels in Miracle City. This caused a large stir and there were many powers and individuals that came to make deposits. This caused the stagnant deposit business to become more active. Miracle Bank obtained enough capital and continued to lend and invest in the forest, while Miracle Bank was becoming more prosperous. At this time, there was a piece of news that came from the southern summer country that Chu Tian had to pay attention to. Chapter 895. Pa. Chu Tian threw the small bottle into the center of a source energy array and a mist-like aura slowly floated out, not scattering and stopping in the air. At this moment, an elemental life form surrounded by starlight wandering around was immediately attracted over. The elemental walked into the source energy array and prepared to absorb the aura. The entire source energy array suddenly opened and a kind of energy field covered the star elemental's body, making its incorporeal body tremble a few times, like it was being strongly disturbed. Light flashed in the air and large amounts of elemental runes continued to form. Like iron meeting a magnet, they were all attracted to the star elemental's body, falling onto it. The star elemental didn't have a physical body, so it immediately began to solidify into a liquid state. Its power was quickly suppressed, and it was like a half-frozen jelly. Its originally light and graceful body now became difficult to move. Although it didn't have any intelligence, its instincts told it that this was bad. The star elemental continued to struggle to escape. Chu Tian saw that the time was right and immediately made a gesture. Several dozen experts made a move together and after an intense explosion, several giant holes appeared on the ground. The star elemental had already been killed and when its body shattered, it exploded like fireworks. Countless high-purity star crystals scattered everywhere and there was even a bright eye of the star among them. Meng Yingying and Nangong Yun began to collect the high-purity star crystals on the ground. Their storage bags were already bulging. They had killed a total of 28 star elementals and Chu Tian had obtained 28 eyes of the star. There were countless high-purity star crystals like this. The entire process was smoother than expected and most of the star elementals here had already been killed by Chu Tian. The biggest regret now was that they didn't have enough star elementals. Each eye of the star was a precious resource. It represented a transport tower, large amounts of transport scrolls, and it also represented the Perfection Realm Starlight Immortal Body. With these 28 pieces, after deducting the team's internal consumption, they could only build a dozen transport towers at most. Of course, Chu Tian should be satisfied with this. The eye of the star was equivalent to a level 4 material. Not only was this a level 4 material, it was also a very precious level 4 material. Being able to find this many in this cave, it was simply dog shit luck. Now there's only one left. Chu Tian's eyes fell onto the core area of the star vein. Everyone put in a bit more effort. We can call it a day after this. This was the last and strongest star elemental. Although Chu Tian did not disturb it, from the aura it released, it was enough to make Chu Tian feel fear. Because of this, when he was killing the other star elementals, Chu Tian avoided this area as much as possible, not attracting its attention. Chu Tian found a suitable place to place the array flag. This was a source energy array specially used to restrain the star elementals, and everyone could see its effects. Being able to kill over 20 star elementals without suffering any damage was because of this array. Once those dangerous star elementals entered the array, they were immediately suppressed. They could not resist at all and could only wait to be slaughtered. Everyone walked around, activating the talisman that blocked off the elemental senses. Now it was very hard for the star elementals to sense them. Prepare yourselves. Begin. Chu Tian threw a small bottle into the center of the array. The small bottle broke and released a smoky substance, which was sensed by the sleeping star elementals. A thick energy aura came from the cracks in the ground and large amounts of bright starlight quickly gathered together. Finally it surrounded the core of the eye of the star and formed a several-meter-tall elemental giant. This fellow was very big. Meng Yingying and Nan Gongyun weren't strong enough, so they didn't participate in the battle and just watched from afar. This star elemental was more than double the size of the ones they had seen before, and the energy it condensed was several times that of the other star elementals. Its body was covered in a dignified aura. This was simply the Star Elemental King. The Star Elemental King was awakened and it immediately moved towards the source energy array. Although the Star Elemental King was very strong, this kind of elemental life form did not have any intelligence. It could only instinctively move closer to something that was clearly a trap, but it could not distinguish it at all. It walked to the center of the source energy array without even thinking. Activate the array. The 8 gnomes with deep cultivations heard Chu Tian's order and activated the array. The star elemental's body was covered in an intense energy field and it suddenly trembled several times. Countless runes were attracted to the star elemental's body and it made its glowing body dim. Even its movements became incomparably slow and difficult. It was sealed. Everyone had killed over 20 star elementals, so they had a basic understanding of the situation. This giant elemental life form had been suppressed and now was the best time to make a move. No one even thought about it as they jumped out to attack. At this moment, the Star Elemental King felt a sense of crisis, and a wave of fluctuation suddenly came from its body. It was actually mixed with a bit of angry spiritual power. Its solidified body suddenly lit up with a strong light, and most of the runes on its body surface evaporated. Chu Tian's expression slightly changed. Be careful. The Star Elemental King was stronger than they imagined and it was different from the other star elementals. This fellow already had a bit of consciousness, and although it didn't reach the level of intelligence, it was much higher than the other star elementals that relied on instinct. After the Star Elemental King broke free of the seal, the suppressed power was released once again. Its body released a buzzing sound as countless starlight connected to each other. It was like a protective barrier that tightly covered its body. The forest experts fiercely attacked the protective barrier. In the end, the protective shield did not shatter. As the countless starlights collided violently, a strong electromagnetic shock burst forth. The people who had launched the attack were all hit by the rebound force, and all of them were sent flying more than 10 meters away like kites with their strings cut. All of them suffered serious injuries. Such a strong fellow. The people Chu Tian found were all forest experts. When several forest experts attacked together, there weren't many people in Miracle City that could block it unscathed. Not to mention that they couldn't break free of the seal and they were injured while blocking the attack. The forest locals were shocked. Although they knew that the star elementals weren't weak, they only realized now that these fellows that were easily killed were actually this strong. If Chu Tian hadn't used targeted methods to restrain them, perhaps they would have been the ones killed. when the Star Elemental King sent everyone flying. The sealing runes covering the surface of his body were destroyed one by one. Everyone could clearly feel that with each rune that disappeared, the Star Elemental King's power suddenly increased. If it released all of its power, even if Chu Tian had the advantage in numbers, it would be hard to avoid more than half of them dying. These forest locals hesitated, they didn't know if they should risk their lives. It wasn't worth it for this kind of opponent. Don't panic. How many talismans did Chu Tian use while he was shouting? They were activated in his hand. These were specially prepared for special situations, mainly used to strengthen the binding and sealing. How many talismans? When they were activated, they turned into energy that entered the source energy array. Light came from the edge of the source energy array and it wrapped around the Star Elemental King in the center like countless threads. The power of the seal doubled. The Star Elemental King couldn't fight back for now. This suppression only lasted for a short time, at most 2-3 seconds. The star barrier released by the Star Elemental King hadn't been broken. This layer of defense was enough to protect it before it recovered its mobility and strength. Everyone had seen the might of this defense. Although the attacks of several forest experts had weakened the defense a bit, it was still very sharp and it couldn't be easily broken. Chu Tian activated the Starlight Immortal Body. He had to make a move in this situation. The demon god Sword Source Spirit was released. Chu Tian communicated with the Netherworld artifact spirit and flames quickly covered his body. His sword art was released to the extreme and he took a step forward. He suddenly disappeared and turned into 8 clones, releasing an overbearing sword glow that slammed into the Star Elemental's defensive barrier. The explosion was deafening. Chu Tian's strength couldn't compare to the forest experts working together, but Chu Tian's demon god Sword Source Spirit had a strong destructive attribute and the Netherworld flame that had evolved many times was the nemesis of defensive cultivation techniques. The two attacks caused the Star Elemental King's defense to explode. However, a rebounding force also surged over like an avalanche. The flames covering Chu Tian's body collapsed and large cracks appeared on the starlight barrier around him. He was instantly sent flying several dozen feet and fell to the ground like a cannonball, creating a large hole in the ground. A good chance. The demon god Sword Source Spirit was close to a god-level source spirit and its destructive power destroyed the Star Elemental's protective barrier, creating a precious chance for the others. The others charged forward and the Star Elemental King was violently attacked, finally shattering into pieces. Chu Tian, you're fine. Meng Yingying and Nangong Yun helped Chu Tian up. I'm fine. Chu Tian waved his hand. Although his cultivation base wasn't high, he still had the large success immortal body, so this rebound wouldn't be fatal. Collect the spoils. The Star Elemental King was truly worthy of being the strongest star elemental. The high-purity star crystals were 4-5 times more than before and the quality of the eye of the star was an entire level higher. This kind of eye of the star could kill several of them. This area is basically safe because there has always been a fierce star elemental here, so the other cave monsters have not moved around. We can make this the Devil's Mouth's outpost and prepare for exploring the deeper underground world. Chu Tian said to Clark, other than that, the resources here are very important for Miracle City's future development, so quickly gather people to arrange the defenses. When Chu Tian finished his task and prepared to leave, Nangong Yun suddenly said, there seems to be something here. Chapter 896. The Southern Summer Central State Laboratory sent a piece of exciting and good news. The source energy computer had made a breakthrough. This was something Chu Tianwei was most excited about recently. Miracle Commerce had exploded several times in the past year, creating the source energy weapons, the space warehouse, and the spiritual world. Now whether it was technology or production, they were all facing a bottleneck. With Chu Tianwei's knowledge in this era, he could only use the crudest method to realize a part of it before he fell into a stagnant state. Now that the source energy computer had been successfully developed, it would instantly break the current ceiling and increase Miracle Commerce's potential by a large amount, so it could be said that this was a very important matter. The source energy matrix is not stable and we can't move it for now. What do you plan to do? Meng Qingguo had participated in the source energy computer research before. Although she didn't know what use the source energy computer had, the source energy computer could be said to be the project Miracle Commerce had spent the most time on, so it was one of the earliest projects Chu Tian had prepared. This complicated, troublesome, and strenuous project, if it wasn't worth it, Chu Tian would never do it. Young miss, go to the gnome's laboratory. I want to borrow their remaining spatial crystals. Chu Tian made his decision. Nangong will contact Yun Tianhe and Gu Qianqiu. I will send the blueprints and materials for the transport tower to the warehouse and have them prepare it in Central State City. Vivian will personally make a trip to Central State as soon as possible and build the transport tower for the southern summer country, making it easier for me to go over. All right. The transport tower was very convenient. Once there was a transport tower, the two places would be very close and they could teleport at any time. But the transport tower not only needed the incomparably precious eyes of the star, it also needed large amounts of spatial materials. Miracle Commerce did not have many of these rare materials, and even the gnomes didn't have many in their several hundred years of storage. When Miracle City's transport tower was built, Chu Tian had already used most of the gnomes' spatial attributed materials. Now that he was in a rush to build the second transport tower, Chu Tian had no choice but to borrow the rest of the gnome's spatial crystals. If these things were left in the gnome's hands, they would at most be used to make some storage equipment, so it was better to lend them all to Chu Tian. At worst, Chu Tian would just give them a space warehouse in the future. Everyone immediately began to follow his orders. This is bad. Meng Yingying quickly ran in. The forest tribes are causing trouble in the city and their leader is Arnold. We don't know how to deal with them. Quickly go and take a look. What? What were these fellows doing? Under Miracle City, several chiefs were leading a large group of people to protest. The newly recruited guards of the city lord's castle were in a dilemma. On one hand, many of these people were their tribe members, so it wasn't good to turn hostile like this. Arnold, you fucking dare to rebel? Arnold saw the angry Chu Tian and immediately shrank his neck. He never thought that he would draw Chu Tian out. After hesitating for a few seconds, he loudly said, "We are not rebelling, we are only fighting for our legal rights. We want to see Miracle Bank's chairman." When Miracle Bank was established, Meng Qingguo was the chairman and Dolores was the vice chairman. Arnold and the others did not want to see Meng Qingguo, rather they wanted to see Dolores for an explanation. Why do you want to see her? Because that vixen Dolores is being unfair. Arnold's large nostrils released steam and he looked very angry. Recently she has been giving large amounts of source stones to people on the outside, but she doesn't even lend us a single source stone. Why? It's just because of the grudges between the tribes. This is clearly using her position to take revenge. We don't accept this. That's right. Outsiders can borrow money from the bank, but we can't. Our tribe will send out 500 elites to become Miracle City's regular soldiers. The chiefs were all excited, as if they had suffered a great loss, giving Chu Tian a big headache. The so-called not worrying about scarcity, but worrying about inequality. Before Miracle Banking was established, everyone didn't think much of it. Now that Miracle Banking was established, several tens of thousands of source stones were used to lend money, but they were all sent to distant tribes and small towns. These locals tried to apply, but they were all rejected. The forest locals did not have good brains, so Dolores's attitude was immediately suspected of having ulterior motives. They thought about how the Fox clan often had conflicts with the nearby Minotaurs and Tiger people, so they naturally thought that Dolores was using her position to take revenge. They didn't know the troubles of the city lord. Actually, it wasn't just the locals that were complaining, even the citizens were feeling dissatisfied. For example, Chu Tian recruited large amounts of elites from the forest to form an army, giving them special treatment and giving them stable jobs. Instead, the citizens didn't receive the same treatment as the conscription, so many gnomes were feeling dissatisfied with the city lord. Could this be blamed on Dolores and Chu Tian? The surrounding tribes were born around Miracle City, so they were all in the same sphere of influence. Dolores' large amounts of loans was not just for the development of the bank, but also to create a larger commercial area, allowing the Miracle shopping center to cover a part of the area. Chu Tian's conscription was to stabilize the surrounding tribes and locals, letting everyone have a stable life. He also gave the locals large amounts of jobs to stabilize their lives, which was beneficial to the development of the area. But facing the dissatisfaction of the citizens, Chu Tian could only announce a large conscription. The citizens had to be a certain proportion of the conscription. Chu Tian asked, "Why are you taking loans? What else can we do?" Arnold confidently said, "The new area is about to open, we need to save money to fight the evil dragon. There have been more and more advertisements recently and we've seen the evil dragon's abilities. It doesn't seem like a fellow that's easy to deal with, so is it wrong for us to prepare a bit more source stones?" Did the locals only care about this? Chu Tian almost spat out a mouthful of blood. He thought they needed source stones for something. Chu Tian asked, "Don't you know that loans need to be mortgaged? Miracle Bank gives out source stones with interest, and if you can't pay it back, the mortgaged item will be confiscated." "Isn't it just mortgaged? We can take it out," several rich tribes said without any hesitation. "We're not afraid, we just want source stones." These locals really wanted loans. "Everyone, please listen to me." Chu Tian knit his brows and thought about it. Then he suddenly said, "Miracle Bank wasn't created to make a lot of money, but rather to promote the development of the forest. The source stones we give out are not just to earn interest, but also to increase the value of the source stones in the forest, creating a win-win situation for the entire forest. Not only do we lend out source stones, we also have to make sure the lender gets more benefits. Otherwise, wouldn't this kind of loan just be a blood-sucking method?" The locals were confused. "What do you mean?" "My meaning is that if you want to apply for a loan from Miracle Bank, then you have to take action. We only encourage business loans at this stage. We don't support personal loans or tribe loans for pleasure." Arnold had an unhappy expression. "The Minotaurs don't know how to do business." "Who says you need to do business to start a business?" Chu Tian clapped his hands. "Yingying, map." Meng Yingying quickly opened a large forest map. Chu Tian stood in front of the large map and pointed at the Minotaur Valley as he said, "The Minotaur Valley is rich in ore deposits and the Minotaurs have a body full of strength, so why don't they make a mine? Miracle City will welcome a period of rapid development, and not only will the ore sell well in the future, the price will also increase. Isn't this a business opportunity? The Minotaurs can use the ore as a reason to attract Miracle Commerce's investment. We can make a Minotaur mine together. Wouldn't the Minotaurs have an endless source of income?" Arnold felt this was reasonable. Borrowing money was not a long-term plan. The Minotaurs were already so poor that they only had their underwear left, so the more they borrowed, the poorer they would become. It was better to teach them to fish than to give them a fish. Miracle Commerce could work with the Minotaurs to make a mine. Miracle Commerce would provide transportation, mining tools, various technologies, sales channels, and etc. The Minotaurs would be in charge of mining and refining the ore. In the future, they would have a large income. Chu Tian pointed at another area and said, "This ogre tribe has very rare wood. This wood itself is a level 3 material and the entire forest is filled with it. You really don't know the treasure you're guarding. We can also work with the ogres to make a lumberyard. This place is suitable for growing. This place is suitable for growing." The center of the forest of chaos was rich in resources. Even if Chu Tian casually dug a hole, he could find a crystal mine that could be mined for 50 years. The rich natural resources were enough to make the entire forest rich. "Look, this forest is rich in resources and there are treasures everywhere. Why do you need to worry about a few source stones in the bank?" Chu Tian circled a large area on the map. "I plan to open a forest industrial park here. The various tribes can invest with Miracle Commerce. Those with money will contribute money, those with power will contribute labor, those with technology will contribute technology, those with resources will contribute resources, and those with channels will contribute channels. We will split the profits together and everyone will become rich together, so why do we need to hurt each other over a small matter? Right, right. The locals were filled with excitement. Miracle Commerce's space warehouse was no longer a secret. With the rich local resources and Miracle Commerce's channels, it was enough for everyone to become rich. They wouldn't need to worry about things like famine. Chu Tian spoke for a long time until his saliva was dry and he finally convinced the locals to leave. He had only provided a preliminary idea. As for the specific plan, it was the young Miss business, so Chu Tian would not worry about it at all. The forest was still very chaotic. The citizens, locals, and various powers were all mixed together. Only a patient and wise manager like the young Miss would be able to organize everything. Chu Tian was afraid anyway. Chu Tian, you're really amazing. You actually managed to trick these barbaric and unreasonable fellows. Tricking? This is called tricking. Chu Tian rolled his eyes. If we want the area to be stable, we can only make everyone rich. This is something we have to do sooner or later, it's not just talk. I really don't know what Miracle City will become in the future. Meng Yingying looked at the silent and empty area with an emotional sigh. Vivian will need a few days to go to the southern summer country to build the transport tower. Do you have any other plans? Of course, we can't just go to the southern summer country like this. We need to go to a place to collect some things before we go back. Chapter 897. Chu Tian looked over to where Nan Gongyun was pointing. The place where the Star Elemental King had been killed had a glowing liquid substance. This thing looked like mercury and it was hard to find in this environment if one didn't look carefully, so it's star marrow. This is a very rare recovery sacred medicine. It's just a sacred medicine. Nan Gongyun thought she had found some treasure. Miracle Commerce had plenty of sacred medicines in their warehouse and there were even several immortal medicines. She was a bit disappointed. Damn, this old lady thought it was some treasure. Your way of thinking is wrong. Isn't a sacred medicine a medicine? Chu Tian filled a small bottle with the star marrow, not to mention sacred medicines are divided into levels. Star marrow is a rare level 4 sacred medicine and because it is very gentle, although it is a level 4 sacred medicine, low-level cultivators can still take it. This kind of treasure is rare, so it will be very useful when we bring it back. The star marrow could be considered an unexpected harvest. Chu Tian returned to Miracle City to properly reward the locals who helped him. He gave them a small reward before sending them away. These locals didn't care about the reward, being able to experience the new trial field for free was enough to satisfy them. Now they just wanted the new trial field to open as soon as possible. At this moment, the City Lord's office. The young Miss and Vivian, the two Vice City Lords, were currently busy with official business. The young Miss was very familiar with this, handling heavy tasks as if they were light. She calmly raised her pen like the wind, instantly taking care of a large amount of matters. Vivian was sitting on the side with a pen in her mouth, constantly scratching her head. Looking at the dense pile of documents, her head was spinning and she couldn't find her direction. Vivian was a bit similar to Meng Yingying, but also a bit similar to Nan Gongyun. Her personality was somewhere in between. Yingying was clever, sensible and serious, but also lively and mischievous. Perhaps it was because of these similarities that these three girls had already become sisters. Nan Gongyun was still the big sister, Meng Yingying was still the second sister, and Vivian, who was originally the oldest, had become the youngest sister. If Vivian's age was changed to a human 14-year-old, this wasn't wrong. In short, these three girls were together all day and their relationship could be said to be very good. But whether it was Yingying or Nan Gongyun, Vivian wasn't cut out to be a city lord. Royal father is hateful. He actually arranged for me to be Miracle City's vice city lord. When Vivian heard that Nan Gongyun and Yingying had gone out to play with Chu Tian, her heart itched and she didn't have the mood to do anything. Elder sister, Vivian, we're back. Meng Yingying happily charged in, you won't be able to guess what good thing we brought back, it will definitely give you a big fright. When Vivian heard Yingying's voice, she became spirited and stood up. What good thing? Quickly let me see it. Meng Qinggu slightly knit her brows. This is the city lord's office, how can you act so rashly? She didn't even finish before Meng Yingying poured out all the star crystals they had obtained. With a crash, it formed a small mountain of star crystals. Vivian and Meng Qingwu's eyes went wide. These star crystals were very pure and contained very high energy. It was definitely a rare top-quality item. They all cultivated the starlight immortal body. Of course they knew how precious this thing was. This. Meng Qingwu was very surprised. How did you get this many star crystals? You still don't know. Nangong Yun was in high spirits. She gestured with her hands and said, Boss brought us on an adventure. It turns out that there is a huge underground world under the city. We can go deeper into it through the Devil's Maw. There are ugly monsters everywhere, for example those evil eyes that can shoot light beams. It's said that evil eyes are one of the lowest level monsters. Our lives won't be boring in the future, so quickly use the star crystals to increase our strength and go on an adventure. I really want to see just how many strange monsters there are inside. Vivian's eyes lit up. Was this true? She was a very curious person, she wouldn't be able to sit still as the city lord. She liked to go on adventures, and if Miracle City had this kind of place, her life wouldn't be boring in the future. Young miss, don't be busy. Be a good boy and go cultivate. Chu Tian did not follow Meng Qinggu. 8 outstanding skeletons, 3 scabbard and woodcutter. In the days that Chu Tian left the small town, everyone's cultivation quickly increased. The Forest of Chaos couldn't compare to the southern summer country, there were too many resources here. There were various elixirs and sacred herbs everywhere and the price was very low. Before Chu Tian left, he gave everyone a customized cultivation plan. With this many resources and the help of the flower fairies, their cultivation increased by quite a bit. Chen Bingyu and Dongfang Haoren were already in the peak first true spirit layer. Meng Qinggu, Meng Yingying, Nangong Yun, and the others were all in the peak 9th awakened soul layer. This batch of star crystals came at the right time. Everyone used this chance to break through their bottlenecks and their strength would explode. Miracle Commerce's high-level members were all in the true spirit realm, so it would be easier for them to stabilize their current positions. Of course Meng Qinggu was filled with joy and excitement. Who didn't want their strength to become a bit stronger? There have been too many things happening in the city recently. Meng Qinggu thought of something and spoke of a very important matter. Prophet Yoda's injuries are very serious. The shamans have already submitted to Miracle Commerce, the gnomes are convinced by us, and the surrounding locals are harmonious. Only the druids are a variable and I'm worried that something will happen to the prophet. This power will fall into chaos because of this, they are not a small power. The green religion, the undead religion, the shaman religion, and the druid religion were the main powers in this area. Compared to the other 3, although the druids were more low-key and stood aloof, they still had quite a bit of influence. The druids' abilities are very interesting. If they can become a part of Miracle City, it will be very beneficial. Meng Qinggu knit her brows. I want to know how to help them. You must have a way, right? Young miss can be assured. Chu Tian said to Vivian beside him, I'll bring Vivian over, this small problem will be easily solved. That's right. Vivian didn't want to sit in the office for a long time, elder sister can be assured of going into closed-door cultivation, there's still us. Chu Tian cut in, the young miss is too weak. I am the respected Miracle City's Vice City Lord, how could my trivial awakened soul realm cultivation be enough? This is too outrageous. Meng Qinggu snappily said, then we've really lost face for Sir City Lord. It's fine, it's fine. Chu Tian said with a giggle, this city lord has always been very lenient with beauties. If Meng Qingwu's strength reached the true spirit realm, her heavenly book source spirit would be even stronger and her work efficiency and learning efficiency would increase by a large amount. The so-called sharpening the knife wouldn't delay the work of cutting wood, so no matter how busy she was, she had to first increase her strength. Alright then, this is the draft plan completed in the last few days. Meng Qinggu placed a thick notebook on the table. We've analyzed some of Miracle City's flaws and areas that need to be improved. Other than that, we've made a preliminary plan for the city. What do you think? I'm very assured with the young miss handling it. Chu Tian was too lazy to even look at it and threw it to the side, then give it out and immediately implement it. Meng Qinggu was speechless. How long was this fellow going to be so carefree? Miracle City was Miracle Commerce's future headquarters, but this fellow had an indifferent attitude. She had truly been defeated by him. Although she was very dissatisfied with Chu Tian's sloppy appearance, Meng Qinggu could feel his trust in her, which made her feel a bit satisfied in her heart. Meng Qinggu brought Yingying, Nangong, and the others into closed-door cultivation. Chu Tian needed to completely solve the druid problem, so he ran to the alchemy room to refine several star marrow pills. Chu Tian found it hard to process level 4 materials with his current strength because a true spirit cultivator couldn't use a level 4 alchemy array and below level 4 alchemy arrays couldn't refine level 4 materials. But the star marrow was very gentle, so it could be used without any refining. Chu Tian could completely merge the star marrow with level 3 materials. Like this, he could make several star marrow pills and their effects would not lose to a level 4 recovery sacred pill. Chu Tian took one first. The star marrow pill's effects spread throughout his body and immediately began to show its effects. This quickly healed the side effects of the backlash from the fight with the Lich. The hidden injuries that would have taken a few days to heal were instantly healed. The star marrow pill's effects were not just simple recovery. This pill could deeply improve the body. No matter how old the hidden injuries were, it would have a strong effect and it could greatly increase the physique. This was a good thing that money couldn't buy. Vivian, let's go. We'll go to the Druid Temple. Alright. Vivian used her spatial energy and instantly brought Chu Tian to the Druid Temple. This spatial energy was hard to defend against and the two of them appeared in front of the Druid Temple. Who is it? The Druids quickly came over. Everyone, don't misunderstand. I am Mayor Chu Tian. Chu Tian raised a pill high up. This mayor knows that Prophet Yoda's injuries have not been healed, so I took the risk to enter the underground world and killed 18 fierce beasts. I collected 8 immortal herbs and refined them into an immortal pill with an ancient recipe. This pill will definitely cure Prophet Yoda's illness, so please take me to see Prophet Yoda. The Druids looked at each other in blank dismay. Was there really such a magical pill? However, Druids still believed in Chu Tian's ability. This was because when Chu Tian fought the Lich Dragon, many Druids saw it with their own eyes. After the battle ended, Prophet Yoda was brought back with heavy injuries and was in a near-death state. It was Chu Tian who found a way to temporarily prolong his life. Chu Tian wrote several recipes to cure Yoda's illness. Who would have thought that Yoda already had hidden injuries and after the battle with the Lich Dragon, his injuries became even more serious. Now that he had completely erupted, he was on his last breath and he might not be able to hold on. The Druids were very worried because the Prophet was not only the leader of the Druids, he was also their highest spiritual leader. If anything happened to Yoda, the entire Druids would suffer a heavy blow. Chu Tian appeared again at this time, claiming to have a top-quality immortal herb. This undoubtedly gave the Druids a glimmer of hope. So it's Sir Mayor, we've been rude. Sir Mayor, please come in. Chapter 898. The basin where they fought the Lich Dragon had already been sealed by the gnomes. Although the earth-shattering battle had passed for a while, the entire area was still covered in a thick death aura. Several dozen miles of vegetation had withered and there were still undead wandering around the area. Whether it was Miracle City or the locals of other places, they were not interested in this place at all. The gnome Great Elder Clark had led people in to dig, finally finding a space filled with powerful death energy under the basin. This should be an ancient death ruin. The Lich had built the altar and array on top of the ruins, absorbing the death energy that had been brewing for tens of thousands of years, finally condensing it into a terrifying power that could destroy the entire city. If Chu Tian hadn't stopped him in time. Miracle City would have already turned into a death zone. Chu Tian brought Yingying, the little fox, the 18 divine servants, and the 10 fox clan priests into the ruins. Everyone be careful. Chu Tian turned around and made a gesture. He looked into the deep underground space and said, "This place is filled with all kinds of dangerous undead." The Fox clan priests were all confused. Why did Chu Tian come here for no reason? Moreover, he didn't lack experts by his side, so why did he choose the demonic god religion's priests? The demonic god religion's priests were not strong in battle, so the Fox clan's main value to Miracle City was beast taming and business. Oh my god, why does this place look so gloomy? Meng Yingying followed Chu Tian into the underground world. She felt her body turn cold like there was ice water pouring into her pores. There are rotten bones all over the ground, it's just like a large tomb. What did you come here for? Is there a hidden treasure here? Chu Tian gave a laugh. Take a guess. Meng Yingying gave a snort. Clark had already brought people to explore the death ruins, but because it was very dangerous and the negative energy was too strong, the exploration team had to retreat after entering a bit, so they didn't have much information to gather. Chu Tian was walking in front with his sword drawn. The little fox was lying on his shoulder, taking in large mouthfuls of energy. It sucked away the strong death energy around them, relieving the pressure on them. The entire underground world was like a huge ancient tomb. The skeletons of the ancient creatures, under some kind of powerful force, actually formed spiraling bone pillars. It was these pillars that firmly supported the space. Chu Tian could feel a strong energy fluctuation. The entire ruin was not simply supported by a physical structure. It had formed some kind of profound and powerful energy field that enveloped the entire tomb. That was why it had not been damaged even after tens of millions of years. Even though the battle in the basin was extremely fierce, this place did not collapse in the slightest. Hey, tell me when the time comes, what is in this broken place? Meng Yingying didn't even finish before her eyes suddenly popped out and her snow-white teeth chattered, "Ghost, ghost. So many ghosts are coming out." The several dozen people had just arrived at a relatively open and flat area. There were spiraling bone pillars all around them, just like naturally formed stalactites rising from the ground. Only these bone pillars had large amounts of terrifying skulls embedded in them. At this moment, the skulls released a smoke-like energy. This energy quickly gathered in the air and quickly turned into a terrifying ghost source spirit. There were many of them, and in the blink of an eye, there were several hundred of them. The dozen people were completely surrounded. The various ancient being skeletons piled up all around them began to tremble. Hua! A bone arm reached out. Meng Yingying's slender leg was grabbed and she was already frightened, so she quickly kicked out with a scream. Meng Yingying's battle strength was not that high, but she was still a true spirit cultivator. True spirit cultivator's spirit energy erupted and the bones were instantly shattered. Meng Yingying was still in shock as she found that the place where the bones touched began to smoke. It was a good thing she had the starlight immortal body to protect her, otherwise with this kind of strong death energy entering her body, her leg would have been mostly crippled. Hua, la, la. The entire world was filled with the sea of bones. Countless strange-looking skeletons slowly crawled out. There were so many of them that it was hard to imagine. There were quite a few complete ancient beast skeletons and their bodies released an aura that was not inferior to a level 3 demon beast. Meng Yingying was scared silly. Run. Run your head. Chu Tian directly knocked her head, truly useless, don't tell others that you're with me in the future. Meng Yingying was not convinced. There were over 1,000 undead monsters awakened this time. These undead monsters had been sleeping in this large tomb for who knows how long, and now they were all very strong. There were even a few that were not inferior to true spirit realm experts. Meng Yingying had been raised by Chu Tian and she had never participated in any battles before. Although her cultivation was high, she was actually very weak, so when had she ever seen this kind of scene? Chu Tian patted the little fox. Go. The little fox immediately made its move. Its figure flickered and in an instant, it passed by the strongest undead monsters. Although the little fox's body looked like a small speck in their eyes, it was like a bullet hitting its prey. These powerful undead monsters collapsed upon contact. They were monsters without intelligence in the end. The little fox could easily swallow their soul flames. Chu Tian waved his hand and the demonic god priests began to summon. Several dozen summoned beasts surrounded them and the divine servants formed a barrier to block the attacks of these undead. A skeletal bird quickly charged over. The divine servants shattered it with a single punch. Meng Yingying was stunned. When did these things become this strong? Nonsense, how could the puppets I refined be mediocre? Chu Tiankai issued an order to the Yao god priests. Do you see these dead souls? I need large amounts of these spiritual bodies. If you help me collect more, this city lord will greatly reward you. The Fox clan priests finally understood. It was no wonder Chu Tian would find the demonic god priests. Chu Tian's main goal in coming here was to collect undead with spiritual bodies. In the entire Miracle City, only the demonic god religion was proficient in preserving souls. This was the foundation of their summoning techniques. The little fox completely suppressed the strongest undead, the summoned beasts. Chu Tian and Meng Yingying blocked the other undead, and the demonic god priests took out bottles filled with strange runes. They used some unknown demonic technique to suck in the spiritual bodies of the undead souls one by one. Meng Yingying wasn't afraid after getting used to it. Although there were countless undead monsters, they couldn't do anything to them right now. Not to mention that they had city return scrolls, so they didn't need to worry about their safety at all. She asked in a strange voice, "Why are you collecting so many spirits? Don't ask so much, just do your work." The undead monsters in this place seemed like they could never be killed. After fighting for an entire half an hour, not only did the undead around them not decrease, there were even more of them. "City Lord, the soul-sealing bottles are already full, we can't store any more." The bottles in the hands of the demonic god priests were filled with purple soul energy that kept hitting the walls of the bottles, as if they would shatter the bottles at any moment. "Enough, we're leaving." Chu Tian led everyone and began to retreat. However, before they left this strange tomb, he cast a glance into the distance. His gaze revealed a look of contemplation. This place was clearly not formed naturally. It was probably a place set up by an ancient powerhouse. So, what exactly was sealed here? It wasn't time yet. Now wasn't the time. Since the ruins weren't far from Miracle City, it wouldn't be too late to explore it later. When Chu Tian returned to the city, it was already dark. This trip's harvest wasn't bad. There were over 100 spirits sealed in the soul-sealing bottles that weren't weak. He directly brought these things to the laboratory. The gnomes were very surprised by Chu Tian's sudden rebellion. Clark asked in a curious voice, "City Lord, is this appropriate?" Chu Tian directly threw a blueprint to him. "Don't ask too much, go and prepare it immediately." The gnomes didn't dare be careless and immediately went to work. Meng Yingying looked at Chu Tian. "What medicine are you selling? Ask less and look more. How can you talk so much? I'm talking too much, annoying you to death. Take this hit." Meng Yingying's round but was slapped. Meng Yingying angrily chased after him, but she was taken down by the divine servants in just 2-3 moves. How could she fight Chu Tian? She could only angrily say something and call her good sisters Nangong Yun and Vivian over. The three of them would beat him together. He really was a fool. Nangong Yun and Vivian were good at fighting, but the two of them worshipped Chu Tian, treating him like a god, so they didn't dare make a move against Chu Tian. While the two of them were bickering, the gnomes were already prepared. Clark stared at the source energy array on the ground. It was releasing a purple glow and was made up of several arrays. If his guesses weren't wrong, this was a soul-attributed array. Who had seen a soul-attributed array in this era before? The gnomes were all curious as they came over. A soul-sealing bottle was placed in the center of the array. With a PU sound, the bottle cap flew up. A dozen or so evil spirits rushed out, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws. Chu Tian calmly said, "Activate the array." The gnome priest quickly activated the array and the evil spirits were covered in light, immediately letting out sharp screams. These spirits were naturally formed vengeful spirits, so their resentment, hatred, and killing intent were too strong. Chu Tian's array could purify them one by one without killing them. Clark was very shocked. The source of the evil spirits' power was resentment and hatred, so they were good at spiritual attacks. If the negative energy was purified, in theory, it would be impossible for them to form a body. Chu Tian purified the evil spirits and kept them in their pure spiritual form. This was incredible. Of course, after being purified, they didn't have any energy left, leaving behind an empty spiritual body. These spirits are already in a stable state without any attacks because the spirits are made of soul energy and spiritual energy. These two things are the foundation of thinking. Chu Tian said this while making a few wrinkles, then as long as the spirits are modified, they can obtain simple thinking abilities. This is the simplest form of artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence. Everyone's expressions changed. Chapter 899. Vivian knew about the existence of the Druids before she came to Miracle City. It said that the Druids could communicate with nature and had a strange transformation technique, allowing them to turn into any kind of demon beast. From a normal bird or small beast, they could freely change into any kind of fierce demon beast. This transformation was not just a change in form. The Druids' most powerful point was that they could completely duplicate the abilities of the demon beast they turned into. This was something that no cultivation technique could do, so it wasn't strange to say it was an ancient demonic technique. Coming to the Druid temple with Chu Tian this time, Vivian was naturally very curious. She immediately looked around. The Druids were not enthusiastic, but they all moved to the side, not daring to show any expression. After all, Chu Tian was the famous Miracle City's city lord and the Druids did have something to ask of him. On a stone platform in the center of the temple, Prophet Yoda's meter-long body was lying in a source energy array maintaining his life force. There were 2 Druid high priests guarding him. This was the legendary Druid prophet that had the ability to predict? Vivian was very puzzled. The legendary wise and powerful prophet, Wisen, did not look like a goblin or a gnome. It was too different from what she had imagined. At this moment, Prophet Yoda's body was covered in wrinkles. He was like a dehydrated frog or a tree bark that had been dried. Although there were no visible wounds on the surface, his life force was already drying up. Vivian said, "This is quite serious, he definitely won't last more than a few days." These words made the other Druids dissatisfied. One of the Druids said in a worried voice, "The prophet's injuries from the fight with the Lich Dragon have been stabilized by the medicine and method the city lord sent. Only this injury has caused the old injuries to erupt and this has caused the prophet's body to weaken. I'm afraid we won't be able to gather the materials." Chu Tian gave a slight nod. "What are you waiting for?" A Bear Tribe Druid high priest anxiously shouted, "Since the city lord has found a way to cure the prophet, then make a move. Can't you see that the high priest's life is in danger? Hey, what are you shouting for? What kind of attitude is this?" As an elf, Vivian hated this kind of cruel spirit beast. Now that she saw this kind of attitude, her heart was very unhappy. "Our big brother Chu Tian came to help, that is giving you Druid's face, making it seem like we owe you." This Bear Tribe Druid high priest had a fiery temper and immediately said, "Humph, if it wasn't for the Druids helping to deal with the undead religion, would Prophet Yoda's old injuries have reopened? If it wasn't for the Druids' help, Green City would have already been destroyed. If this human became the city lord, how could there be any Miracle City? Saying that you owe us isn't wrong. You." Vivian was just casually saying this, she never thought that this Druid would be this unreasonable. She was so angry that she almost bit her cheeks. The city was destroyed, how could the Druids be spared? You say it like the Druids are selfless, but aren't you doing it for yourselves? If it wasn't for Big Brother Chu Tian killing the Lich, not to mention your prophet, not a single one of the druids who participated would have returned alive. How will this debt be settled? The bear tribe high priest stared at her. Staring at me? Do you want to fight? Vivian's personality was not as fiery as Nangong Yun's, but other than being obedient in front of Chu Tian and Meng Qingguo, she had never been afraid of anyone. So she rolled up her sleeves and revealed her snow-white wrist. Stupid bears like you, I've beaten more than 10 of them before. Seeking death. The bear tribe druid high priest angrily roared and his body released a dazzling light. His body instantly swelled 5-6 times and his leather armor burst open. His mane wildly grew as he turned into a giant beast. Vivian narrowed her eyes and the space around her trembled. A dagger appeared in the air and a strong aura instantly locked onto this giant beast. It was as if the dagger only needed to move a little and it would cut the other side to pieces. Space attributed source spirit. The druids were all shocked. Vivian looked like she was only 14 years old, but her cultivation wasn't low. She was in the peak 4th true spirit layer and she had spatial energy that normal people couldn't defend against, so it wasn't hard for her to kill several high priest level druids. The druids were all on guard and they all prepared to make a move. Chu Tian crossed his arms in front of his chest like he was watching a play, but he was muttering in his heart. These druids really were unreasonable. If they weren't properly taught a lesson, perhaps they would cause trouble for Miracle City in the future. Stop! A druid high priest came forward. This was a rare eagle race spirit beast. He had a pair of giant wings and his feet were like eagle claws. The eagle race was silent and they weren't as violent as the bear people, so he immediately came forward to stop them. The city lord came to save the prophet out of kindness and you still made a move against them. Do you not care about the druid religion? What did the prophet teach us? If you want to fight, I don't recommend it. Chu Tian slowly said, only, I think I forgot to introduce you. This is Vivian from the Eternal Forest, she is Miracle City's Vice City Lord, the Eternal Forest's Elven King's youngest daughter, and also the most talented elven wings in the Eternal Forest. These words were like a bolt of lightning hitting the druids. The Elven King's youngest daughter. This elven girl was actually the Elven King's youngest daughter. The bear man's high priest was speechless and returned to his original appearance. Even if the druids were rebellious, would they dare make a move against the Elven King's daughter? Not to mention whether they could win or not, just the Elven King representing the Eternal Forest was not something any local power could resist. Sorry, the druids were too impulsive this time. The eagle race's druid high priest stared at the bear man and immediately went in front of Chu Tian and Vivian. As long as we can save Sir Prophet, the druids are willing to pay any price. I hope the city lord does not mind. Of course I don't mind. Chu Tian did not have any temper at all, but, since the druids like to settle accounts, then I might as well calculate it. You said that Yoda brought people to help deal with the lich, I admit this. But, without the skin, where can the hair go? The druids did not make a move just for the city. I also saved Yoda from the lich dragon and sent him the medicine as soon as I returned, so the two sides are even on this matter. The eagle race's druid high priest was very embarrassed. Yes, the city lord is right. Then we'll count it another way. Chu Tian took out a star marrow pill. This is to save Master Yoda. This city lord personally brought people into the underground world, killed 18 fierce beasts, collected 8 kinds of immortal herbs, and refined this pill using an ancient recipe. I think that there is no such thing as a free lunch in this world. I won't ask for a high price, so you can buy it for 500,000 source stones. 500,000 source stones. How could the druids have that many source stones? The druids did not have any source of income. Not to mention 500,000 source stones, they couldn't even take out 50,000 or even 5,000. Chu Tian put away the pill. This city lord has something to do, so I'll be leaving first. When you have enough money, you can come find me. After saying this, Chu Tian looked like he was about to leave. City lord. The druids were all panicking. You can't be this heartless. Heartless? I also want to talk about feelings, but you're talking about benefits with me. Chu Tian shrugged his shoulders. Forgive me for speaking bluntly, but in my eyes, the Druids are just a group of people that only remember grudges and not kindness, so what feelings do I have? I saved Yoda today, but who knows that in a few days, you'll rebel against me. Instead of taking this risk, I might as well make the first move. The Druids broke out in a cold sweat. When Chu Tian said this, it was as if he wanted to fall out with the Druids. Right now Miracle City was ruled by Chu Tian alone. Not only did he have the gnomes' approval, he also had the support of most of the shaman religion and several tribes. If Chu Tian wanted to kill the Druids, he would definitely have the ability to take advantage of Yoda being heavily injured to eliminate the Druids. Vivian, let's go. Vivian released her spatial energy and prepared to leave with Chu Tian. City Lord. Wait. The Druids all came over. The Bear Tribe's high priest's expression changed. He knew that he had caused a large disaster. This calm-looking city lord was not an easy person to deal with. I am willing to swear in the name of the Druid god that I will be loyal to Miracle City and will not do anything against the Druids. Chu Tian finally raised his hand. He had Vivian stop the spatial teleportation. The other Druids knew what to do, so they angrily swore that they would never betray Miracle City. The Druids swore in the name of the god they believed in, so this kind of oath was more trustworthy. This city lord does not like killing and fighting. Everyone should live a good life and earn money together. What's wrong with that? Chu Tian shook his head and said, Prophet Yoda is a wise person, Miracle City needs this kind of wise person. Although you have disappointed me, I am still willing to give you a discount, 100,000 source stones. The Druid wanted to cry, Sir City Lord, the Druids don't have any wealth, we really can't take this out. Another Druid priest said, we can slowly pay back the source stones, but the prophet's situation can't be dragged on. You're right. Chu Tian patted his head and took out several scrolls, then we'll make several spiritual contracts. The 100,000 source stones will be the Druid Temple's debt to Miracle City and I'll give the Druids 3 years to work for Miracle City. This contract needs all the high priests to sign and as long as they accept the conditions, I'll immediately save the prophet. Perhaps it wasn't a sudden idea. These contracts had been prepared a long time ago. If they had a bit of a brain, they would have realized that they had fallen into the city lord's trap. But did they have a choice? Sign. We'll sign. 100,000 source stones was not a small number, but to save Prophet Yoda, the Druids were willing to pay any price. Under the lead of the Bear Tribe's Druid High Priest, all the High Priests came forward to sign the contract with Chu Tian. Chu Tian revealed a cunning smile as if his plan had succeeded. Chapter 900. Artificial intelligence was a very advanced concept. It would be strange if primitive people like Clark and Meng Yingying could understand it. Artificial intelligence was artificial intelligence. This kind of thing could not be considered a life form, nor could it be considered an undead. It was just a tool that could think. Since it had intelligence, it could think. Since it could think, it could learn. Since it could learn, it could progress. This was the difference between artificial intelligence and normal puppets. Because the spiritual body's level isn't high enough, it can only form basic intelligence. Chu Tian said to the several artificial intelligence that had already been modified, this kind of spiritual body has formed intelligence, but it can't form its own consciousness. Therefore, it is an excellent intelligent tool. It will never be tired, annoyed, or afraid. In the future, it can be used in many different fields, which will greatly increase our efficiency. The gnomes were deeply shocked. Artificial intelligence could control most knowledge through autonomous learning, so it was hard to imagine their future potential. Whether it was city management or laboratory research, artificial intelligence would occupy a very important position. This was because artificial intelligence was a kind of existence that did not have emotions. They could think, but they did not have their own consciousness. They were absolutely fair, absolutely calm, and absolutely observable. They really never would have thought. Chu Tian had casually created such an amazing thing. Meng Yingying did not think much about it, but she knew that with tens of thousands of artificial intelligence, it was the same as tens of thousands of scholars that would never get tired. The Yun sect's research efficiency would be greatly increased. Clark quickly asked, Sir City Lord, can you prepare a batch of these artificial intelligence for the research base? This kind of low-level artificial intelligence is very easy to produce. With the millions of undead spirits in the death ruins, it is not a problem for us to produce as many as we want. Chu Tian shook his head when he said this. The biggest problem is how to train them. Although artificial intelligence will never get tired, this kind of low-level artificial intelligence has a limit to their intelligence, so their learning speed is very slow. If we want them to learn how to speak and learn various skills, it would take at least 5-8 years. If we want them to learn enough knowledge, it would take several decades or even 100 years. The gnomes disagreed. The gnomes could live for several hundred years and the spiritual bodies had an unlimited lifespan. If they could train a group of spiritual bodies from scratch and pass it down, after several thousand years, these fellows would all become peak masters. Chu Tian of course knew what they were thinking. Although artificial intelligence can always exist, artificial intelligence has a limited memory space. This kind of low-level artificial intelligence can only learn how to speak and communicate. At most they can learn some basic knowledge. Once their memory space is filled, they will not be able to progress any further. There's a limit to growth. Clark knit his brows. Then what should we do? If it was just normal daily communication and assistant work, it would release a lot of hard work and brainless work. Artificial intelligence could save people quite a bit of work, but it could not create more value. There are 2 ways to change this. The first is to create a higher-level artificial intelligence. Chu Tian threw something at Clark. Come, first purify this thing. This is the Lich's soul flame. Clark recognized it with a single glance. This was the Lich's soul flame that Chu Tian found in the Lich Dragon's remains after his battle with the Lich Dragon. It contained all of the Lich's memories and wisdom. Clark was very curious as to why Chu Tian kept it, but now Clark finally understood. This soul flame could also be used to create an artificial intelligence. The soul flame needed a carrier. Chu Tian disassembled 10 spirits and used an array to refine them into one. Then he purified the Lich's soul flame. Although this Lich had lived for over 2,000 years, it had already lost all of its emotions. However, its consciousness had not been completely eliminated. Chu Tian did not need an artificial intelligence that still had its own consciousness. Combine. The Lich's soul flame was poured into the new body. The spirit body's appearance instantly changed, turning into the Lich's previous appearance. A large robe covered its body and a pair of red eyes were revealed from the hood. Only it was different from the previous Lich. This was a spirit body. The Lich's power had completely disappeared, but its memories and wisdom were preserved. From today onwards, your name will be Zero. Understood, Sir City Lord. There was a fluctuation around Zero and the sound of the air vibrating was transmitted to everyone's ears. This voice was very mechanical, without any emotions or consciousness at all. This was completely different from the spirit body he had just created. This was a high-level artificial intelligence. Whether it was its current knowledge or its future learning potential, it was not something a low-level artificial intelligence could compare to. Chu Tian asked, Clark, what do you think? This is truly a wonderful technology. Clark's words were not empty words. He never would have dreamed that Chu Tian would turn the Lich into an intelligent puppet. From now on, the Lich's 2,000 years of accumulated wisdom and memories could all be used by Chu Tian, only Sir City Lord. This kind of artificial intelligence is very hard to make. What is the City Lord's second method? The second method. Chu Tian deliberately dragged out his voice, that is to use the artificial intelligence as the core of the computer and have it be implanted into the source energy computer. Even if it is a low-level artificial intelligence, as long as it is combined with the source energy computer's powerful calculation, storage, and analysis abilities, it will become an unimaginable existence. The gnomes were stunned. What was Sir City Lord saying? Why couldn't they understand at all? At this time, Vivian used the communication device to contact Chu Tian. She told Chu Tian that she had arrived in the southern summer country's central state and that the transport tower was currently being constructed. It would only take half a day before it could be used. Chu Tian's eyes lit up. I'm too lazy to explain, it's better to see it with my own eyes than to say it. Clark, come with me to the southern summer country. Sir City Lord, you. What did you say? Clark has lived in the forest for 380 years and has never left the forest before. He never thought he would leave the forest one day because the forest of chaos is just too big. There are enough resources and space inside, enough for the gnomes to live and reproduce. Go to the southern summer country. A human country. That's right, Vice City Lord Vivian has already prepared the transport tower, it won't take long for the two sides to connect. Clark never dreamed that he would leave the forest of chaos one day and he would be heading to a human country. When Vivian finished building the transport tower in Central State City, Chu Tian brought a large group of people to Miracle City's transport tower. He first tested the other side's spatial coordinates and confirmed that they could be transported. Chu Tian did not waste time, everyone prepare yourselves, the spatial journey is about to begin. As soon as his voice fell, Chu Tian activated the transport array. The space began to slightly tremble as an invisible energy quickly gathered, condensing into a hard-to-see spatial force field. When the spatial structure began to change, the elements in the air were pushed away, finally releasing a dazzling white light. It was unknown how long it had been since he had experienced this feeling. When Chu Tian lived in the future 30,000 years in the future, there were transport towers and space gates everywhere. He even needed to use them to pee, so after transmigrating to this era, these things were very precious. The light disappeared. Chu Tian's surroundings completely changed. The green mountains were gone, the waterfalls were gone, the forests were gone, and what replaced it was a large human-style palace. Yun Tianhe, Gu Qianqiu, the countless Yun sect scholars, the Southern Summer King, the Divine Wind Marquis, the Golden Arrow Marquis, and the others were all gathered here, witnessing this miracle together. Success! Gu Qianqiu and Yun Tianhe roared out. Each scholar cheered out. The Southern Summer King, the Divine Wind Marquis, the Golden Arrow Marquis, and the others were all filled with excitement. Before Chu Tian was teleported over, they couldn't believe that this was real. How could there be such a magical technology in this world? Now they were told that there was nothing impossible in this world, at least it was like this for Chu Tian. Greetings to the country guarding ruler. Greetings to the country guarding ruler. Greetings to the Cloud Dream Marquis. White light flashed around Chu Tian. Meng Qingguo, Meng Yingying, and Nangong Yun, these people that he had not seen for a long time had all returned to the southern summer country. These people were simply legends of the southern summer country. Especially Chu Tian, he was like a god that was worshipped by the entire southern summer country. His status was not inferior to the southern summer kings. Chu Tian laughed as he walked over, everyone, long time no see. Greetings to the southern summer king. The southern summer king gave a bitter laugh, not knowing what to say. The white light flashed again. Clark was sent over. When everyone saw him, they all revealed shocked expressions. The gnomes did not have much contact with humans and this was a race that had only been seen in books. They never thought that they would see one in front of them. But compared to the humans' shock, Clark's brain had simply short-circuited. When he appeared in the southern summer country's royal palace, when he saw the various humans around him and felt the different environment, he almost suspected that he had not woken up yet. This is the gnome Great Elder Clark. Although he does not have the title of a scholar, he is very knowledgeable. It is entirely possible for him to become a country scholar or even a country scholar. Chu Tian gave a simple introduction, Elder Clark. This is the southern summer country, a small human country to the north of the forest of chaos. Everyone was filled with deep respect. So it's an expert from the forest of chaos. The southern summer king nodded, since it is an honored guest, the southern summer country will not neglect you. We will immediately hold a banquet to entertain our guests and also to welcome the country-guarding ruler and the Cloud Dream Marquis. There's no need for a banquet. Chu Tian did not come back to eat and drink. I want to see the source energy computer. Yun Tianhe and Gu Qianqiu were interested. Yes, Chairman, please come with us. Chapter 901. Since the Druids admitted defeat, Chu Tian did not make it hard for them. He immediately gave the star marrow pill to Vivian and had Prophet Yoda take it. The Druids were filled with apprehension. Although they had suffered a large loss, as long as Prophet Yoda was cured, the Druids were willing to pay this price. Wasn't it just owing Miracle City 100,000 source stones? This number was not a small number, but with the work of the several hundred Druid priests in the Druid temple, they could repay 10-20,000 every year, and they could repay it in 4-5 years. Vivian was a bit nervous in her heart. The Druids were not easy to deal with. If Chu Tian ruthlessly slaughtered them and didn't achieve the desired effect, the Druids would rebel again and Chu Tian's prestige as the city lord would be greatly reduced. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes passed. After Yoda took the star marrow pill, his skinny body slowly recovered a bit of vitality. There was a faint glow of starlight surrounding his body, and it was like rain on a dry land, making his wrinkled skin recover its vitality. It seems like it's effective. The Druids all revealed looks of pleasant surprise. This pill seemed ordinary without any extraordinary abilities, but the effect was this immediate. It seemed like the city lord was not lying. This was a rare immortal pill. Whether it was the materials or the refining method, it was all impeccable. The prophet is awake. The prophet is awake. The Druids cried out in joy. Yoda was already slowly regaining consciousness. Vivian saw that the Druids were this happy and she felt very proud in her heart. Big brother Chu Tian was really powerful. This dying person was actually revived by a single pill. Chu Tian nodded in satisfaction. Prophet Yoda, how do you feel? Yoda was the spiritual pillar of the Druid religion. Although the Druid religion had several high priests, just the high priest alone couldn't stabilize the religion. Once something happened to Yoda, the Druids would split. It wouldn't just be the Druid religion's problem, but rather the entire Miracle City's problem. Chu Tian didn't want Miracle City's conscription to go wrong. Yoda woke up and was stunned for half a second. He was surprised to find that his body had changed. The injuries from my battle with the Lich Dragon have completely healed and the old injuries are clearly improving. This is... The Druids were overjoyed. This meant that the prophet would quickly recover his full strength. At that time, Yoda would be a peak spirit transformation true spirit expert. Chu Tian already expected this. You've taken the pill I refined and these small injuries will naturally be healed. However, you don't need to thank me because this pill was sold to your Druid temple, it was just a fair trade. Yoda didn't know whether to laugh or cry when he understood what was going on. Actually, with Yoda's wisdom, how could he not guess that Miracle City would make a move against the Druids? No matter how magnanimous a ruler was, they wouldn't tolerate a group of troublemakers in their territory that didn't listen to orders. However, Yoda never thought that Chu Tian would use this kind of method. 100,000 source stones isn't considered much. Chu Tian gave a suggestion. I'm prepared to set up a staff department in Miracle City and have Prophet Yoda be Miracle City's chief staff officer with an annual salary of 10,000 source stones. Are you interested? The Druid was infuriated again. Chu Tian actually wanted the Druid's great prophet to be his subordinate. This was simply an insult to the Druid religion and the Druid god. Yoda was a bit hesitant. He didn't agree or reject. I want to remind everyone here that the current Miracle City is no longer the Green City of the past. Chu Tian spoke in a calm and dignified manner. The person in charge has changed and the rules have also changed. I respect the Druid culture and I can set up an autonomous region in the city, but within my city, all citizens must follow Miracle City's rules. There are no exceptions and no exceptions. He already said this. Could the Druids refuse? Chu Tian was also lenient, giving the Druids enough freedom. Miracle City would not interfere with the Druids' internal affairs, but the Druids had to follow Miracle City's rules. With a city lord like you in Miracle City, the forest of chaos will have a new heaven and earth. Yoda said in an emotional voice, I agree to the city lord's request. I am willing to use my meager wisdom to help Miracle City prosper. The druids were all stunned. The noble and mysterious prophet actually agreed to this kind of request. I believe in Prophet Yoda's promise. From today on, Prophet Yoda will be Miracle City's chief of staff and high-ranking scholar. I believe you will not regret your choice today. Chu Tian took a step back and cupped his hands. Since it's like this city lord won't bother you any longer. Prophet Yoda has not fully recovered and needs to rest. I will wait for the prophet's arrival in the city lord's castle. Vivian reached out her hand. The two of them disappeared in a spatial tremble. Sir Prophet. The druid said with a complicated expression, do we really have to submit to the rule of this human? That's right. We do not need to submit to a human. The druids are free, how could we be controlled by a human? Submit, how could we submit? Yoda sat down on the platform. I can't see Miracle City's future, but I can say for sure that this city will undergo an earth-shattering change. The druids wander around the forest and never have a true home, so I think we should find a stable place to live. After tonight, the druids will not only have to follow Miracle City's rules, they will also have to actively enter the world. The druids and the high priests were very shocked. The druids always had a neutral attitude. Unless their survival was threatened, they would not participate in any disputes. Yoda wanted everyone to actively enter the world, which was completely contrary to the druids' teachings. But the druids never doubted the prophet's words. If Prophet Yoda said this, then it must be reasonable and would be beneficial to the druids. These druids never doubted the prophet, not to mention the other druids. Although they were a bit confused, everyone accepted it. Yoda's clear eyes flashed with a few rays of light before he slowly closed them. Vivian brought Chu Tian to a grassland. There was a fast-flowing stream and hundreds of flowers were blooming. Butterflies flew through the bushes and there were wild deer and rabbits running away. There were mountains all around them that reached into the clouds. How did this look like a city? It was simply a quiet forest park. If they walked forward for another 10 miles, they would arrive at the arena for the recruitment. This kind of city was too spacious and too big, it was almost like a small country. There was enough space for humans to build several large cities. Big brother, is that dwarf very strong? Vivian thought about it. When he woke up, I didn't think I could win against him. If he recovers his strength, perhaps he would be a spirit transformation expert. Vivian was basically the second strongest expert in Miracle City. At least with the void escaping and the spatial dagger's offensive power, there weren't many Heaven Spirit Realm experts that could fight her, but there was nothing she could do if she met a spirit transformation expert. Miracle City still needs a strong enough person to oversee it, not to mention that Yoda has enough wisdom and knowledge. Whether it is managing the city or participating in the laboratory research, he can become an important person. You've done this and made the druids submit. When Big Sister Meng Qinggu finds out, she will definitely be very happy. The last obstacle in Miracle City had been swept away. Now was the time for the city to truly develop. Chu Tian's communication device rang at this time. It was actually Dolores calling. Chu Tian hadn't seen this coquettish fox girl in several days and he didn't know where she had run off to. It was said that Meng Qinggu sent her out to do something, but it seemed like she had already returned to Miracle City. Let's go, to the City Lord's castle. Vivian used her spatial energy without saying anything else. Dolores was in the magnificent hall of the City Lord's castle, playing with the communication device in her hand. Although she didn't know the principle behind it, this thing Chu Tian made was just too easy to use. No matter where the other person was, she could immediately contact them without any hindrance. There was a spatial fluctuation. Vivian had brought Chu Tian back here. Chu Tian looked at the travel-worn Dolores. I haven't seen you in so many days, where did you run off to? You're still talking. A respected great city lord doesn't even know what his subordinates are doing. Dolores helplessly rolled her eyes at him. I've mobilized over 500 clansmen and have already formed a fox caravan. They are going in different directions to open a trade route for Miracle City. The gnomes. This was basically an isolated city. The gnomes were good at studying, but they weren't good at doing business. The city's income came from the taxes of foreign merchants. Now that the master had changed and Miracle Commerce was a business organization, adding in Meng Qingwu's merchant background as the vice city lord, naturally they would use Miracle City's superior location to do business. It was expected that Meng Qingwu would use the Fox people to do this. Chu Tian had also considered this before. The Fox people were natural merchants. I came back with a city returning scroll to report a few things. Dolores patted her waist where there were 2 scrolls, but speaking of this thing is very useful. Nonsense. Do you know how precious a scroll is right now? Miracle Commerce only had these few transport scrolls. Although Chu Tian had obtained a large pile of Eyes of the Star, he didn't have time to make them yet. It seemed like Meng Qingwu had given the remaining scrolls to Dolores so that she could report back to the city at any time. Dolores didn't beat around the bush and directly said, "We've already contacted many powerful tribes, towns, and even cities far away. Almost all of them are very interested in our products. This is a good thing. But we've also encountered some problems." Dolores gave a faint sigh. "I came back to discuss this matter, but the Vice City Lord is in closed-door cultivation. Although I'm very unwilling, I can only discuss it with you." Fuck. You're saying it like I'm very willing. Chapter 902. There was a large change in the southern summer country. Central State City's population had increased by 1/3 compared to when Chu Tian left, and it was twice as prosperous as before. This was not only because Central State City had become the Southern Summer Imperial City, but also because it was the birthplace of Miracle Commerce. Miracle Commerce had a large laboratory in Central State City and a large industrial park, which directly increased the growth of Central State City. Especially after Miracle Commerce's space warehouse was opened, Miracle Commerce often sold resources from the Forest of Chaos to the Southern Summer Country, which greatly increased the Southern Summer Country's strength. At this moment, people like the Divine Wind Marquis, the Golden Arrow Marquis, and the others had all broken through their bottlenecks. The 2 of them were now experts in the first true spirit layer. The barbarian berserkers trained in the Southern State Berserker Training Camp were also hired by the Southern Summer Country. They also bought large amounts of source energy weapons from Miracle Commerce's arsenal and used the 4 States Lake as a natural barrier, so it was hard for the Warhound's kingdom to take any advantage. Now that the Southern Summer Country had recovered its strength, it was not weaker than before. The Southern Summer Country quickly became famous in a short period of time. Now there were caravans coming to the Southern Summer Country from the surrounding countries to buy Miracle Commerce's products. Therefore, although the Southern Summer citizens still used Southern Summer gold coins, in large transactions, they began to use source stones. This was a sign of connecting with the international market. The Southern Summer Country becoming the Great Summer Country was just around the corner. Clark walked on the streets of Central State City and felt like he was in another world. There were several dozen airships flying in the sky and tall buildings. There were all kinds of large screens, showing all kinds of eye-catching advertisements and the sound of horns coming from the streets. There were fewer beast carriages on the streets. Most likely due to Miracle Commerce's influence, Central State was a very innovative place. The source energy battery-powered source energy hover cars had already appeared, and there were quite a few people using this new convenient transportation tool. They were like beetles moving through the streets of the city. This was truly too shocking. How could a small country like the Southern Summer Country develop to this point? The prosperity and wealth of the human cities far surpassed Clark's imagination. He did not dare believe that this was the capital of a small country. The rise of the humans in the last few hundred years was not without reason. Perhaps in another few thousand years, the elves and spirit beasts' limelight would be suppressed by the humans. The Central State Laboratory had already undergone a large change. After Chu Tian left Central State, he took a part of the business with him and placed it in the Southern State Laboratory. The Central State Laboratory focused on the source energy computer and expanded it several times, reaching twice its original size. There were over 2,000 people working on the source energy computer. With Chu Tian providing the core technology and ideas, the research team of over 2,000 people went through over 135,000 adjustments and experiments before finally completing something that surpassed this era. The Central State Laboratory members knew that Chu Tian was coming, so they all ran out to welcome him. Chu Tian saw several familiar figures among them, like the Lin siblings, the two founders of the Heavens Alliance. Now that the citizens had joined Miracle Commerce and had become official researchers of the Yun sect, they were young and promising, making people envious. They were walking on the path of realizing their dreams. Greetings to the chairman and vice chairman. Everyone excitedly bowed down, almost kneeling down to Chu Tian and Lin Sun. These were all scholars from all over the country. A portion of them had never seen Chu Tian before and could only understand him through Chu Tian's image and deeds. Now that Chu Tian had become a god worshipped by the entire southern summer country, with this legendary person appearing in front of them, how could these people not be excited? Chu Tian was very surprised. There are so many people. Of course. Gu Qianqiu had already broken through to the true spirit realm and he looked much younger than before. Perhaps it was because his life was more fulfilling and filled with energy. Not only are there southern summer scholars, there are also many people who didn't hesitate to travel thousands of miles, coming from other countries to study in the southern summer country. They have all become Yun sect scholars and there are even 4 great scholars. Chu Tian nodded. Not bad, not bad. The Yun sect can be considered strong. With the Yun sect becoming stronger, the happiest person was of course old man Yun Tianhe. The Yun sect originated from the Central State Yun family. The Yun family was a small country's family, but now they were able to use this method to become famous and they could participate in the Yun sect's research. This was truly a breakthrough. The Yun sect's current strength did not seem strong. Among the gnomes that Chu Tian had allied with, in terms of academic level, there were at least several hundred great scholars. However, the geographical isolation would cause academic isolation. The human scholars and gnome scholars did not have the same research methods, so they needed to communicate with each other in order to integrate. Not to mention that the Yun sect was created by Chu Tian. Gu Qianqiu, Yun Tianhe, and the other Yun sect scholars had been studying with Chu Tian for an entire year, so they had grasped large amounts of Miracle Commerce's core technology. This was a gap that no scholar in the world could catch up to, so they couldn't be judged by their knowledge alone. Chu Tian's group began to tour the Central State Laboratory. Although Central State's Yun sect's research facility had been moved to Southern State, this was Miracle Commerce's earliest research facility, so it was still the place where Miracle Commerce's technology was gathered the most. Almost every Miracle Commerce product and technology was stored. I suggest that Great Elder Clark form a group of scholars when he returns and have the gnome scholars come to Central State for a period of time. What do you think? That's exactly what I want, that's exactly what I want. Clark was already deeply shocked by Miracle Commerce. Clark finally understood Chu Tian's background, but he also felt a large opportunity and future. Most of the gnomes were scholars, Miracle City's resources were stronger than Central State's, and Miracle City's research facility was larger than Central State's. Moreover, Chu Tian had already made Miracle Commerce their headquarters, so the Yun sect's future headquarters would be in Miracle City. The gnomes would have a large opportunity. If they could join the Yun sect, the gnomes would have a decisive position in the Yun sect. This was enough for the gnomes to go down in history, becoming the representative of the continent's scholars, pioneers of invention and innovation, becoming a large influential clan in another way. Yun Tianhe opened the door to a laboratory. Rows of drawer-like black boxes appeared in front of them. When one of the black boxes was pulled out, each box was filled with source energy array slabs. There were 6 of these black boxes, forming a hexagon. They were all connected to each other, forming a large complex source energy matrix. This source energy matrix was made up of over 10 arrays and each array had over 100 source energy arrays. There were over 300,000 runes and it needed around 10 energy columns to operate at the same time. These are the main computers, they are the first generation source energy matrix. Yun Tianhe said in a very proud voice, this source energy matrix contains over 300 source energy array processing centers and 8 information storage arrays. Its calculation speed can reach 500 million times per second, which is enough to handle a large amount of information. 500 million calculations per second? Clark revealed a stunned expression. With this kind of powerful calculation ability, if it was used in source energy array deductions or experiments, how much of a help would it be? 500 million. Chu Tian shook his head, too slow. This was still slow. Everyone didn't know what to say. Not to mention the size is too big. Chu Tian looked at the 6 large black boxes and shook his head. We need to increase the strength of the source energy matrix and shrink the size of the source energy matrix, otherwise a single source energy matrix would take up the entire room. It would be too cumbersome and it would be hard to popularize. Yun Tianhe and Gu Qianqiu wiped their sweat. The chairman's request could scare people to death. This source energy matrix calculation system took over a year to make. Could it be that he wanted to promote this to the entire world? That was simply a joke. Chu Tian said, we are preparing to make an automatic array engraving device. With an intelligent computer, array masters won't need to personally carve runes one by one in the future. All the talismans and alchemy production will be automated and the production efficiency will increase. The automatic array engraving device needed source stones to operate. Because the source energy contained in source stones was the closest to the human body, it could be used to make source energy arrays. Source energy batteries were an industrial energy source that could maintain source energy arrays, but they couldn't be used to make source energy arrays. So, the array engraving device would cost a lot, but it would free up large amounts of labor, allowing them to increase their technology. Gu Qianqiu said, this array is still missing a core. There's no need for you to say it, I've brought it. Chu Tian gently waved his hand and the artificial intelligence Zero was released. Zero, begin the fusion. Zero's incorporeal body floated to the center of the giant array. There was a crystal there and Zero's body melted into it. Almost in an instant, an invisible energy spread out and the entire array was activated. Chu Tian directly asked, Zero, how do you feel? Zero's voice came from the array, the entire array has been connected to me. Is Zero really that strong? Meng Yingying was a bit in disbelief, you wouldn't be bragging, right? Chu Tian snappily said, if you don't believe me, you can test him. I'll test him. Meng Yingying loudly asked a series of questions. Zero, let me ask you, 2525413 multiplied by 434242 divided by 21,343 multiplied by 43,543 added by 654,245 multiplied by 143,432. What is the final result? Zero answered without any hesitation. Meng Yingying spent more than 10 minutes to calculate it once. Finally, she discovered that there was not even the slightest error. The hundreds of digits after the decimal point were calculated clearly. She immediately revealed an expression of admiration. Chu Tian was amused by Meng Yingying. You want to ask Zero this kind of child's play question? Meng Qinggu never thought that the combination of the artificial intelligence and the source energy matrix calculation system would have such a shocking effect. If we bring this source energy computer to Miracle City, we can use it to manage Miracle City's accounts, bank data, citizens' information, and even city planning. I think it would be very convenient. How could it be just like that? Chu Tian said with a faint smile, the source energy matrix calculation system's calculation speed cannot be compared to the human brain. Using it to create a spiritual space will be more stable, using it to invent new source energy arrays will be more outstanding, using it to control source energy weapons will be more terrifying, using it to control production will be more precise, and in the future, when the calculation power increases by several hundred or thousand times, we can even use it to calculate all kinds of changes. In short, its functions are not something you can imagine. That's right. Zero was the continent's first super source energy computer. Although it couldn't compare to humans in terms of invention and creation, it could not be compared to normal people in terms of logic and calculation. It had already reached the realm of spiritual gods. Chu Tian ordered, "Young miss, send Zero to Miracle City. You will be the only person with the highest authority over Zero other than me. From now on, Zero will be Miracle City's management system. I believe that with this thing, Miracle City's development will increase by a large amount." Meng Qinggu asked, "When will the second one be made?" Gu Qianqiu and Yun Tianhe looked at each other. "I'm afraid it will take at least a month." "That long?" "No." Chu Tian shook his head and said, "Recruit more people, I'll have the gnomes help you. First create the array machine, we don't have that much time to make them one by one. This thing needs to be mass-produced, it needs to be smaller and smaller, and its computing speed needs to be faster." Yes. The birth of an intelligent computer. This was Chu Tian's true beginning. Chapter 903. Chu Tian was depressed, but he didn't care about it with his personality. He was happy to be idle anyways. Dolores's fox caravan had opened a trade route for Miracle City and they had already obtained initial results. They had basically settled in the nearby small towns and were negotiating with the local tribes, even trying to establish contact with other forest cities. "We are prepared to build a large-scale Miracle shopping center." Dolores told Chu Tian her idea. "The first batch will be placed in over 20 small towns to test the effects. We will be working with over 100 tribes this time, selling Miracle City's products and sharing the forest resources, creating the largest supermarket in the forest." Miracle Shopping Center concept. Meng Qinggu had already mentioned it in the southern summer country's South Sky City. The Miracle Shopping Center was a large-scale general merchandise platform and a supermarket built by the company. Miracle Commerce's products would be the main product, clearly marked, sold on the shelves, and sold in a regulated manner, with chain stores all over the country. This platform would also bring in the products of powerful companies and families from all over the country, making the shopping center more complete and competitive. Meng Qinggu's idea was very far-sighted and she had a lot of potential. The only mistake was Miracle Commerce's development speed. Miracle Commerce had only spent a year rising from South Sky City to jumping out of the southern summer country. There were also canned food, magnetic sound machines, source energy weapons, and other products with great potential. The Miracle Shopping Center's development speed couldn't keep up with the company's development speed, so Miracle Commerce's revenue wasn't large. Therefore, it was quite useless in the southern summer country. Meng Qinggu once again brought up the idea of the forest supermarket. This was not only because Miracle Commerce's position was different from before, Miracle Commerce itself was also different from before. Miracle Commerce's spatial technology had made large progress over the past few months. The Miracle Shopping Center would completely change and become the largest supermarket chain in the forest in a way that surpassed people's imaginations. The Forest of Chaos was very big and rich in resources. Why were the forest races so poor? Why were there so few merchants from outside the forest that came to do business? The main reason was that the forest environment was too complicated and dangerous. There were ferocious aborigines everywhere, and bandits who blocked the road were everywhere. 90% of the powers in the forest followed the dark forest law and did not dare show themselves. Every time the forest merchants came to the Forest of Chaos to do business, it was a gamble of life and death. These contradictions affected the development of the Forest of Chaos, and it was because of these contradictions that Meng Qinggu saw a large opportunity. The Miracle Shopping Center could change this situation. The Miracle Shopping Center was no longer a large physical shopping center in South Sky City, rather it was a higher level, more suitable, more convenient, and more flexible existence. It combined the already mature Miracle Commerce communication technology, sound and image transmission, air transportation technology, as well as the currently starting, but already beginning to be used space and spiritual technology. Dolores gave an example. We are prepared to open virtual shopping centers in 20 small towns, using image transferring mirrors to display products. The important products will be directly tested in spiritual experience stores and each store will be connected to Miracle City, allowing customers to directly ask questions from a distance. This way, we don't need a large store and we can have tens of thousands of products. Chu Tian nodded, that sounds pretty good. That's not all. We can use the Miracle Broadcasting Station and the Miracle Television Station to advertise and buy products. For example, we can use the Miracle Shopping Center's hot products, event products, or the newest products to broadcast or send pictures and videos to various places. It's best if people can buy things without leaving their homes. Vivian was confused hearing this. How will we send these things to our customers? That will depend on the space technology you are in charge of. Dolores became more excited the more she spoke. Although with Miracle Commerce's current level, we can't open a personal storage warehouse for everyone, but we can collect orders and send them to various cities and towns. If there are large orders from tribes, we can use airships to send them. This way, there will be almost no risk. In doing business in the Forest of Chaos, risk was always number one. This risk mainly came from the outside world, but with Miracle Commerce's method of doing business, not only was it fast and convenient, it also had almost zero risk. Miracle Commerce did not just sell their own products, they could also sell products from the southern summer country and other places. The large tribes chose to cooperate with Miracle Commerce and they sold their products on the Miracle Shopping Center's platform. Not only could they sell it to the various cities and towns in the forest, they could even sell it to countries outside the Forest of Chaos. When the products were no longer restricted by region, the price would naturally rise and the benefits would be unimaginable. Miracle Commerce's platform would not only create a large amount of value, it would also allow them to gather large amounts of resources for themselves. It would also allow the locals of the forest to become rich, allowing the Forest of Chaos to undergo an earth-shattering change. Vivian's blood boiled hearing this. It was just like what Vivian thought when the space warehouse was built. This was a large benefit to the elves. For example, the elves' tea leaves, artwork, and various treasures. If they were sold locally, they wouldn't be worth much, but if they were sold to the human empires, they could be sold for over 100 times the price. Didn't the elves not like interacting with the outside world? Now they could ship these things to Miracle City and have Miracle City sell them in the shopping center. At worst, they could just split the profits and the elves could obtain benefits they didn't even dare believe before. In the future, the elves could use the Miracle Shopping Center to buy products from all over the continent. As long as they paid the money, these goods could be sent from all over the world to the Eternal Forest, to the secret area where the elves lived, allowing the elves' lives to be greatly improved. Too great. Good, it really is very good. Chu Tian rubbed his chin and said in a confused voice, "What is so difficult about this? Miracle Commerce is still too small right now, we don't have enough manpower to send people to build the shopping center. Moreover, as the shopping center becomes larger and larger, our shopping center team will become larger and larger. Finally we will become bloated and it will be hard to manage." Dolores said with a sigh, "There is another very important thing. Think about it, we've opened such a large market, if we eat it all by ourselves, wouldn't other people be jealous?" Vivian knit her brows, "Then what do we do?" Vice City Lord Meng Qinggu is prepared to find a regional agent, this will solve this problem. Dolores paused before saying, "The small towns have their own agents, the cities have their own agents, and the countries have their own agents. We'll cooperate with the strongest power in the area and let the locals manage the shopping center. Miracle City will provide technical support and management and will split the profits. This way, it will make it easier for the local areas to manage and it will make everyone rich together. The young miss really has a way. If we find an agent like this, it will make it easier for the local areas to manage and it will speed up our development. On the surface it looks like we're giving up some benefits, but it will create a more stable win-win situation." Chu Tian nodded, "Since it's like this, then we'll do it. Do you think I don't want to?" Dolores rolled her eyes. City Lord Meng Qingwu's plan is meticulous, but there are still some mistakes and miscalculations. The large tribes and races in the Forest of Chaos are much poorer than she imagined. Although there are many people who are interested, they don't have enough money to participate. No money? What are you talking about if you don't have money? Chu Tian had a look of bad luck. Could it be that Miracle Commerce has to build everything for them? That's why I came back. Dolores smiled strangely. That's exactly what I'm thinking. Chu Tian and Vivian were both stunned. Dolores was not a stupid person, she should know how big the investment was. She hadn't even seen the benefits yet, was she going to give away all the money first? As Miracle City's chief financial officer, she should know that Miracle City's financial situation was not optimistic. I have an idea, we can use this chance to create another platform. If this platform is successful, in the Forest of Chaos and even on the continent, it won't be any worse than the Miracle Shopping Center. Dolores paused for a bit. I've even thought of a name for the platform, it'll be called Miracle Bank. Bank? This was Vivian's first time hearing this term. What is a bank? We can invest a large amount of money to build a bank and the bank will lend them money through mortgages, letting them complete the initial construction. Dolores added after saying this, of course, the bank won't lend money for free. We can set a high interest rate and use this method to earn money. Vivian quickly thought of the key point, what if they don't return the money they borrow? The forest races are actually not truly poor. Their tribes have accumulated treasures from generation to generation, they only lack primordial stones and certain resources that they need. Our loans have mortgages, so if the tribes want to borrow money from us, they have to put up a mortgage. Dolores added after saying this. In the future, when Miracle City has enough reputation, we can expand our business even further. The forest races have money and it's not safe to keep large amounts of money in their tribes, so they can store it in the bank. Not only will we not charge them a storage fee, we will even give them a certain amount of interest. We will use the bank's money to pay a mortgage, using money to make money, creating an endless cycle. Good. Chu Tian was very excited. Very good. Dolores did not disappoint Chu Tian, actually thinking of this method. This fellow was destined to be recorded in history, she would become the founder of the continent's financial world. This is a detailed plan. Dolores gave a scroll to Chu Tian, I hope that the bank can open as soon as possible, giving Miracle City and Miracle Commerce a stronger motivation. Chapter 904. The Super Source Energy Matrix and the Artificial Intelligence Spirit Body. The two were completely different things. According to normal history, the two would appear around 400–500 years apart. First there was the Source Energy Matrix and then the Artificial Intelligence Spirit Body. Therefore, the Source Energy Matrix in the history books was originally controlled by humans and could only be used for normal calculations and statistics. After all, a living person could not merge with the Matrix and the Matrix itself did not have any intelligence. When the Artificial Intelligence Spirit Body appeared, the situation was different. Gu Qianqiu said with a sigh, this thing will be recorded in history, chairman should give it a new name. Chu Tian also felt that computer didn't sound good, so he said to the people beside him, I'm not good at naming things, you guys should do it. I have one. Meng Yingying scratched her head and blurted out, how smart is its brain? We'll just call it Smart Brain, what do you guys think? Meng Qinggu nodded in satisfaction, I think it's very good. Chu Tian didn't think too much before deciding, alright, then we'll call it Smart Brain. Smart Brain, this was a super intelligent computer with strong learning and calculating abilities. It could be used in all aspects of life in the future. This was another milestone in the continent's development and a leap in Miracle Commerce's development. Meng Qinggu was already a bit impatient, immediately send this smart brain to Miracle City to use first. I want to figure out how many functions smart brains have. Chu Tian waved his hand at her, what is the young miss in a rush for? Smart brain won't fly away if we leave it here. Now that Miracle City and Central State have a transport network, we can teleport between the two places at any time. It's already very convenient to go back and forth, so there's no need to be in a rush. This was also true. Having a transport tower was truly convenient. Speaking of the Miracle Transport Tower, we consume quite a bit of energy each time we use it, so there should be a limit to the number of people we can teleport each day. Moreover, while the transport tower brings convenience, it also brings danger and instability. For example, people with bad intentions from the outside world can use the transport tower to come to Miracle City. Meng Qinggu asked, is there a way to prevent this from happening? The miracle transport towers were built all over the world. It was impossible for Miracle Commerce to protect every transport tower, so there was always the possibility of an accident occurring. This would undoubtedly bring danger. When the Miracle Transport Tower is connected to Smart Brain in the future, we will be able to control everything, so we don't need to worry about this. Chu Tian said this before pausing. As for now, we can only raise the threshold to prevent the transport tower from being abused. Meng Qinggu nodded. The two of them drafted a Miracle Commerce's Transport Tower Usage Regulations and Guidelines. This set of guidelines clearly stated, before using the Miracle Transport Tower, one had to first apply for a Transport Tower Use Permit from Miracle Commerce and also a Transport Pass Permit to the destination. The former was the right to use the local transport tower and the latter was the right to reach the destination. Unless it was a high-level member of Miracle Commerce with special permission, they had to apply to the relevant Miracle Commerce department a day in advance. They had to report the time and destination of the transport and pay 20 source stones to complete the transport service. After going around and around, in the end, they still had to spend 20 low-grade source stones. 20 low-grade source stones were converted to Southern Summer gold coins, that was 20 million gold coins. This kind of cost was hard for normal people to imagine, but with this kind of restriction, the transport tower would not be overloaded and it would be able to prevent any danger from occurring. Meng Qinggu nodded in satisfaction. This was much safer. Not only was the transport tower safer, it was also a foundation for commercialization. That night, the high-level members of Miracle Commerce gathered in the Southern Summer Royal Palace. The Southern Summer King held a large-scale banquet, not only to celebrate Miracle Commerce's glory, but also to thank Miracle Commerce for supporting the Southern Summer country. Actually, Miracle Commerce's early development was inseparable from the care of the Divine Wind Marquis, Yun Tianhe, and the Southern Summer King Dong Fanggan. The reason the Southern Summer country was able to smoothly pass through several crises was also because of Chu Tian and Miracle Commerce's help. Especially after the Southern Summer country's imperial region was destroyed, the Southern Summer country had to move their capital to Central State. Chu Tian brought his team to leave Central State, but he kept sending resources back and selling weapons and troops to the Southern Summer country. This allowed the half-dead Southern Summer country to quickly recover. The entire Southern Summer country was filled with gratitude towards Chu Tian. Although Miracle Commerce would slowly move out of the country, Miracle Commerce's traces would never disappear. Miracle Commerce would still leave behind large amounts of factories and laboratories in the Southern Summer country, which would continue to operate. Not only would it provide large amounts of jobs for the Southern Summer country, it would also bring the country to prosperity. Meng Yingying, Nan Gongyun, and Vivian were very happy. The three girls repeatedly clinked their cups and drank until their faces turned red. Let's drink another cup. Let's go to the theater after we finish eating. Alright, I heard that he has a new work coming out recently. Nangong Yun and Yingying were very attached to Central State. After all, they had grown up here and had over 10 years of memories. Meng Yingying's face turned red. It wasn't easy to come back and we thought we wouldn't have another chance in this lifetime. Who would have thought that the transport towers would be built and we could come back to play at any time? This is truly great. That's right. Nangong Yun began to laugh. Our boss really is skilled. Vivian also chattered on. In the future, distance will not be a problem. When we're in the mood, we can come back to eat or go to the theater. This kind of life is very beautiful just thinking about it. Big brother Chu Tian is too great. Dolores had just been called back from Miracle City and it was her first time coming to a human place. At this moment, everything was filled with novelty. This is where the Vice City Lord lived. It seems like the Vice City Lord's status in this country wasn't low. Meng Qinggu nodded with a faint smile. She didn't like to drink and would only take a sip every time. In order to keep a clear head, she bitterly smiled and shook her head. What status? If it was a year and a half ago, I would just be a small merchant in a small city a few hundred miles away from here. Every day I would be careful as if I was walking on thin ice, living a life of constant fear. How is this possible? Dolores cried out in shock, "Your company is so big and you're a marquis. Moreover, you're so smart and capable, how could you be a small merchant? I don't believe it. Human society is more complicated than the forest." At that time, there was no strength, no background, and no technology. How could you have any achievements? When Meng Qinggu said this, her eyes became a bit hazy. In this 1 year, everything has changed. Miracle commerce has gone from nothing to something, from small to big. It really is shocking. 1 year. Miracle commerce only used 1 year. Dolores couldn't even close her mouth. This was clearly not the work of Meng Qinggu, it was all the work of the mysterious Miracle City Lord. He really was a miraculous person. This king will take this chance to announce a few things. The Southern Summer King gently raised his hand and several royal proclamations were presented. Miracle commerce has given the Southern Summer Country a new lease of life. The Cloud Dream Marquis is now titled the Cloud Dream Ruler, Nangong Yun is titled the Phoenix Marquis, and Meng Yingying is titled the Marquis Ying. The Southern Summer Country is small and has no land to grant. Although it is an empty title, it represents the Southern Summer Country's friendship. Whether it was Nangong Yun or Yingying, they did not care about the Marquis title. They had the resources in their hands, how could a title compare to them, not to mention an empty title? But to be granted a Marquis title in their country, this was a matter worth celebrating. While everyone was celebrating, suddenly, one of the Southern Summer King's communication devices rang. Portable communication devices were very common in Central State and most people with a bit of status had one. How could the Southern Summer King not have one as the king? The Southern Summer King did not say much before his brows knit together. There is a situation in the northern defense line, this king cannot accompany everyone. I've been rude. What did you say? Could it be the northern spirit beasts are attacking again? Nangong Yun almost flipped the table. How preposterous, are you done? It's not an all-out attack. The Southern Summer King shook his head and said, it's just harassment. Everyone doesn't know. Yun Tianhe said from the side, when you left the Southern Summer Country, the Warhound's kingdom had already harassed the Southern Summer Country 5-6 times. Although they returned without any success, they still brought quite a bit of trouble. Although the Southern Summer Country can block the Warhound's kingdom's attacks, they do not have enough military strength to counterattack. Right now the North and South are in a state of separation. Chu Tian knit his brows. What is the Warhound's battle strength like? After the Battle of the Four States Lake, the Feng King and his army were completely annihilated. The Warhounds have gathered another 300,000 elites on the Warhounds Plains and the Eagle Burial Warren Kingdom has added another 300,000. Now there are 600,000 troops stationed in the fortress. Although there are more and more troops stationed here, they have only been harassing us, which means that they are still accumulating strength. As long as their army reaches a certain level, they will launch another large battle against the Southern Summer Country. It's too troublesome to have a ticking time bomb by our side. Chu Tian looked at the young miss beside him. How about we take advantage of this time to get rid of them in one go? Get rid of them in one go. The Southern Summer King and the others all opened their eyes wide. Chu Tian said this in a very relaxed tone. How was it like he was destroying a large kingdom? It was as simple as drinking a cup of water in front of him. Who would have thought that Meng Qinggu would not be surprised by Chu Tian's suggestion? After thinking about it for a minute, she nodded and said, this is also good. Miracle Commerce's business in Central State is not small and if it is exposed to the enemy's army, it will be like a fishbone stuck in our throat. It is better to get rid of it as soon as possible. This can be considered taking revenge for the Southern Summer Country's old Marshal Dongfang Zhan and the other heroes who died.